Hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. We'll be starting here in just a few minutes. Just a few minutes to get started. Please share, like, and subscribe. We're going to be sharing this out to everybody, and we'll be starting here shortly. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be starting here momentarily. Thanks for jumping in. See some good names there, some familiar people in the chat. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. We'll be getting started here, just sharing this on all the different platforms here, and then we'll be going here very quickly. Everybody have a good week out there. It was a wild week at the state legislature. We got so much to talk about. We're going to go over some of the news of the week. We're going to share some updates on the most important bills we've been following all year. And then we will also be having Representative Brandi Bradley joining us here at 7:30 p.m. So very interesting night we have on the live stream. We do this every Sunday night during the legislative session from 7 to 9. Going to make you one of the most informed people here in Colorado politics. It's going to be a lot of fun. Perfect. I'm going to go and stop that share for a second. But hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. Thanks for joining us. My name is Brandon Wark from Free State, Colorado. And we also have Michael Vance. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Brandon. Another great week watching the commies try to destroy Colorado, but we are still alive. We always have hope and ready to get this one going, Brandon.
Oh, yeah, we are going to win in the long run, folks. But the first step is to become informed, to become empowered, to know what's happening in our state government so we can act accordingly, right? We have to know who are the good legislators, the bad legislators. And don't get me wrong, it's pretty obvious most of the time, but there is some nuance and there is some understanding. And it's important to understand the policy that's coming out of our state capital because it does affect us. It affects our employers, it affects our families, it affects our right to keep and bear arms, for example. So much happening. We want to make you empowered and informed. We really encourage you to show up and speak out every week at the state capitol through the committee hearings. And we're going to talk about those different opportunities you have this week, sharing with you some of the most important bills going through committee hearings. And then, yeah, get some great insider information from Representative Brandi Bradley. It's going to be a lot of fun. But Michael, how have you been doing?
I've been doing good, Brandon. I mean, all things considered, I mean, it could be much, much worse. My family is alive. They're safe. They're doing well. So, all things considered, it's been a good week. How about you, sir?
Awesome. Yeah, doing very well. So busy. There's so much happening, so much interesting things coming out of the state capitol, of course. We got campaign season in full swing. Definitely people check out freestatecolorado.com to get up-to-date information, really videos, putting out 4 or 5, whatever, 6 videos a week sometimes about what's happening here in Colorado, interviewing candidates. But the live stream is definitely a highlight of the week for me because we get to talk and have a lot of fun really going over what's happening in our state capitol. So with that, Michael, you ready to get started?
Absolutely.
Right on, right on. So I'm going to pull up our slide presentation here tonight. We got kind of a, it's kind of a hunting theme. It's really was supposed to be more of a gun theme, but I was thinking hunting's kind of appropriate because we have so many predators in our state government, so many bad legislators who are child predators, maybe. And yeah, and of course, these predatory politicians who are trying to prey upon our right to keep and bear arms and our businesses and our freedoms. So tonight, our agenda here is going to be 7 o'clock. We're going to start off as we do every week now, talking about some of the news of the week. At 7:30, we're going to have Representative Brandi Bradley join us to give us some insider information about what's been going on in the state capitol, share some of her important bills that she's working on, and hopefully give us some juicy details about some of these bad guys and bad girls down there under the Gold Dome. And then at about 8 p.m. or so, we'll see how long the Representative Brandi can join us, Representative Bradley. And then 8 o'clock, we'll have some of the bills being heard this week. So that's really the meat of the presentation, to talk about bills that are being heard in committee hearings this week, because there's so much opportunity for you to testify, for you to speak out and make some noise. And then at 8:30, we're going to really be about updating you on the tracked bills. So we got, gosh, nearly 100 bills now, probably. I don't even know how many bills we're tracking throughout the entire legislative session. Even if they're not being heard this week, we're going to tell you when their next committee hearing is, if it's been scheduled yet, if that bill has died, been killed in committee, what it is. So it'll be a lot of fun, very interesting. How does this sound, Michael?
It sounds great.
Awesome. So let's jump into some of the news of the week, the bare truth about what's going on in Colorado politics. So one of the big stories, of course, is we're going to have another vacancy appointment, folks. So this story was on February 10th. So this was last Tuesday. A top Democrat in the Colorado Senate is resigning to take a nonprofit job. Of course, another nonprofit job, right? Citing legislative pay. Of course, it's service, folks. It's serving the community, serving the people of Colorado down at the state legislature. That's not supposed to be a job that pays very well. I kind of think they shouldn't get paid anything ultimately on some level, maybe just a stipend to pay for their food, and that's about it. Or, I don't know. But nonetheless, Daphne Michelson Janae, who's been a horrible anti-gun and anti-liberty legislator during her tenure in the House and the Senate, is leaving. So great, good to hear, awesome. She is terrible, but we'll see, of course, how this vacancy appointment shakes out and who's going to replace her. What are your thoughts on this story, Michael?
I thought this story was very interesting, and there was one little quote that stuck out to me. I'll read it for y'all. It was a heavy decision, and there were a lot of factors, not the least of which is my family has struggled over the last 10 years, and I have been in the legislature and earning well beneath my capabilities, said Michelson Janae, who worked for nonprofits before running for office. That's really taken a hit on my family. So she's basically saying she's not earning it's not worth her time and not worth her paycheck for her to serve Colorado. And if that's the case, then I absolutely want her to not be in the legislature. Somebody, as you said, yeah, these legislators should not be relying on the income of their capital salaries to get by. The reason you do this is because you care about Colorado. It should not be because out of income. If income is a factor, then you are more willing to grift, and we see this time and time and time again within legislatures, whether it's the Colorado State Capitol itself underneath the Gold Dome, or even the U.S. legislature in Capitol Hill, especially in Capitol Hill. So if somebody has to make this decision, if money is a factor, I don't want you here, because you're going to more than likely harm Colorado by making financial decisions based off of what is best for your own personal pocketbook than what's going to be best for the liberty of Coloradans everywhere.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. These legislators, it's so important for people to know these legislators don't really care about us, right? I mean, that should be obvious by now. They really only care about their paycheck than their career. So if she sees there's no opportunity to advance her career, get more money out of this, then she's jumping ship, and good. Let's get her out of there. She's terrible. It is important to that if you're a good pro-liberty Democrat, don't get me wrong. I know there's not a lot of them out there, but there are some, that you have a voice and you get involved, because you could be one of those people who could be elected through a vacancy appointment potentially. So I just think that's very interesting stuff. Another big story of the week. This article just came out on February 9th, so just about a week ago. Colorado's legislative activity has increased 56% since 2012, report finds. This was over in the Denver Gazette. The Colorado General Assembly has adopted increasingly more bills in the last several years, even as their proposals have also become more complex. The legislature passed 487 bills during the 2025 legislative session, representing a 56% growth in legislative output since 2012. The growth represents the fourth highest in the country, behind only Wyoming, Utah, and Montana, according to a report by the Common Sense Institute. The report also found that the average complexity of bills, measured by the number of words in each year's digest of bills, was 26% higher than a decade earlier. So, folks, if you have a question, if there's any question remaining about why Colorado is worse off than it's been a decade ago, for example, since 2012, let's say, It's because of this, right? We have more regulations forcing employers to shut down, small businesses to go out of business, employers to leave the state. Of course, people's rights being taken away. We've seen soft on crime policies passed that have made our lives much more dangerous. Cost of living has increased, and so much of it has to do with our state government, our state legislature. Really, they're just they're working overtime to take away our rights, to take away our freedom, and to make life a little bit harder for us. What do you think, Michael?
No, I completely agree. I mean, one of the things I that sticks out to me is this AI bill. Robert Rodriguez a few years ago created a bill because he was scared about AI, didn't fully understand the impact. And now what's happened? The last couple of years, last year's legislative session, we discussed AI, and then they pushed out everything to the pushed out issues with AI legislation to the special session. The special session happened, and one of the big delays and one of the biggest reasons that the 3 day special session took way longer than 3 days was the AI bill. And guess what? They still couldn't figure out how to handle AI. Instead of just doing a full on repeal of the AI bill, they went ahead and kicked the can down the road to this legislative session. So it's only a matter of time before we see another bill that people don't fully understand that's going to have to address the issues with the original AI bill that we're not going to be able to fully address. And it's because of the complexity of what's going on at the legislature. If there's 20, for example, each bill is about 26% higher in detail than the year than years in the prior. That means that it's taking more time for each individual legislator to understand every single bill that's proposed in front of them. On top of that, they have a lot more bill input into the legislature. So when you combine all these factors, these legislators are not able to make as in well thought and or informed decisions as they possibly would have been able to in the past, which is one part of that's really bad. But there is a silver lining in this. These legislators don't have as much time for you and me as they normally should be able to take in to fully flesh out, fully inform their thoughts on what they believe is going to be best for Colorado with each piece of legislation. That gives you the opportunity, and that gives you a bigger opportunity as an individual who is well informed on these individual issues, whether it's gun rights, whether it's medical freedom, whether it's Tabor, what have you, to get to submit your input. Send an email to your congressman, congresswoman, somebody in the House, whether they're in the House or the Senate, and give them your information. A lot of times, these people will still reach back out to you, and you can form a relationship, and you can have a dialogue back and forth about these bills. So your input is more important than ever when it comes to sending emails and calling your representatives so that way they make a more informed decision, because that might be the most impactful thing to them. So that way when they do come to these come to the hearings, um, they're more they have more bullets in their chamber, we'll say. Also, that means if they aren't able to make that decision and really fully flesh these bills out, that means that you're going to have a even more of an ability to make an impact in these committee hearings than ever before.
Yeah, good points. Good points. There's always a silver lining here, folks, but it all comes down to getting involved, having that relationship with legislators, try to have a voice, do what you can, right? We can't do everything, but we can do something. Another couple news stories from this last week, of course, making international headlines here was this last week. Colorado would become first state in the entire country to remove all criminal penalties for prostitution under a bill brought by a group of Democrats. Absolutely crazy. A little sub headline there. While prostitution is legal in Nevada at licensed brothels in certain counties and Maine decriminalized the selling of sexual services, no state has fully removed the criminal penalties for prostitution. We can talk a little bit more about that bill. We'll probably talk about it. Maybe we'll spend most of the time when it comes up for a committee hearing. But of course, that's one of the biggest news stories right now is this whole idea that under Senate Bill 97, no local government would be able to stop sex slavery, basically sexual services for sale in their own communities. Absolutely crazy stuff. Absolutely wild. It's so interesting to see all the reactions, see all the conversations that people are having online about it. But of course, that's a huge news story this last week. What do you think, Michael?
Oh no, I mean, I'm really shocked that this bill was even introduced in the first place. Um, there's even a preemption clause in this bill. Just absolutely surprised that especially Nick Hendrickson. I don't want to go into too many details because, like you said, we'll talk about this bill later on down the road. But Nick Hendrickson, of all people, in Senate District 11, in a Senate district that's trending to the right, that's become very much a key swing district for the 2026 election, decided to pass a bill like this. People in Pueblo are sick and tired of the way things have trended for decades there. It's been under Democrat rule for the longest time, and we're starting to see a trend to the right. And he decides to post something wild and crazy like not necessarily which is what they're calling decriminalization of prostitution. It's in a way form it's legalizing the act itself in a way. Even which is even different than marijuana decriminalization. But I'm very shocked because I think there's going to be a lot of ramifications from this legislation being introduced come 2026. I know Hendrickson's not running, so really he doesn't have to worry about the consequences of his decisions for the Democrats, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, and I'd say, I was surprised too to see this bill introduced just because of the breadth of it and the scope of it. I do not believe for a second it'll make it out of committee. I think that every single municipality, county, every kind of community organization that exists, aside from like the ACLU and similar types of organizations, are going to oppose this bill. I don't see the middle of the road Democrats going along with this. I think it's very interesting to see it all play out, though, and definitely will have some implications in the 2026 election. So we'll definitely be talking a lot more about that in coming weeks. We'll definitely keep you informed when it's coming up to a committee hearing. My guess is they're going to try and get it done with quick. Leadership probably just wants this not to be a topic of conversation, I would think. So they might just push it quick. We might see it just all of a sudden pop up on the calendar within 2 days. I would not be shocked at that. It'll be interesting to see if they don't do that. So, and then another big story this week, this last Monday, I believe it was, we talked about this bill on last week's live stream and was really excited. I watched the committee hearing. I was really excited to see this bill fail. House Bill 1036 would have allowed new taxes on vacant property here in Colorado, an absolute affront to property rights to say if you're not staying in your property X amount of days, they're going to tax you extra because of that. So, really happy to see that bill fail. I was very excited to see that not go anywhere. So, and it's interesting, right? Because there is a lot of the moderate Democrats out there who are hearing from their power brokers, maybe, or people they know, or maybe some wealthy Democrats who own second homes themselves who don't want to get taxed extra. I don't know why exactly, but I think it's interesting to see that this bill was so soundly rejected. What do you think about that 1036, Michael?
I was very happy to see this one rejected as well. I don't know how many of you listen to committee hearings. I know a lot of people in the comments um, listen fairly frequently, but this was an interesting one. I thought, in my opinion, Velasco and Tatone were kind of stepping over each other a little bit, in the fact that one would make one comment and then the other one would kind of contradict the other. I also thought it was really revealing that Tatone was very much looking to control behavior with this bill and was very adamant about looking to control people's behavior with what they do with their property, an absolute total violation of property rights. These people do not care about what you want to do with your property. They think that they get to tell you what's best for your property. It's absolute authoritarianism. These tyrants love to expose themselves, and in my opinion, I'm extremely grateful for when they do expose themselves, because we need to know and we need to have this on record. So if you guys have the opportunity to record these committee hearings, uh, it's absolutely a wonderful idea to get down to the Capitol. If you can't get down to the Capitol, you can always listen online. That's one of my favorite things to do, is just listen online, find a link, and just listen to these tyrants expose themselves.
Definitely, yeah. Follow Free State Colorado on X. I'll try and always post the links there as well, and follow Michael Vance on X as well. Some of the big stories, of course, was this House Bill 1082, the Children Are Not for Sale Act, which Democrats killed. Big shocker there. House Democrats in Colorado legislature killed this bill that would have ensured that criminals convicted of child sex trafficking would get life in jail. It was absolutely shocking. It made national headlines. But just to pull this up real quick, we had Javier Marbury, Michael Carter, Jennifer Bacon, Chad Clifford, Cecilia Espinoza, Lorena Garcia, and Yara Zoke, all voting against locking up child sex traffickers for life, people who are convicted of this most heinous crime. Of course, the four Republicans did vote for it. Representative Kelty, Flannel, Soper, and Slaw, but you can just see this here, folks. And this definitely got a lot of traction. My post here on X has 264,000 views, just to give you an idea that people all across the country were seeing this, were paying attention to this. And, I know there's a lot bigger accounts than me out there, like Libs of TikTok, who are posting about it, and they got way more views than that. But just to give you an idea of how shocking this is to the public, I think, to see that our own state government is unwilling to lock up child sex traffickers for life. And I guess not too shocking if you've been paying attention for a while. And then we did talk about House Bill 1036 dying in committee, another big story. And then actually, we got this bill this last week as well, the bill to end the taxation on retirement benefits. They basically would have said, we're not going to tax your retirement income. And Representative Bob Marshall, one of the most vulnerable Democrats in the state House, voted against that, voted to continue taxing retirement income in Colorado. That's something that needs to have ramifications here in 2026. Really want to make sure people were aware of that. But any thoughts on any of this information here, Michael?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to point out that on February 10th, the Democrats killed Bill 1082 to ensure that child traffickers receive life in prison. You want to harm a child, you should go to jail forever. You are not the type of person that should be on our streets. You are not safe to the communities. You're going to destroy these children for the rest of their lives. Uh, and that happened on February 10th. February 12th, we hear about Senate Bill 97, which is going to decriminalize prostitution. So you could see there's a very odd connection. And I think it was awesome that, Brandon, you're one of the first people I saw to make that connection and point that out. Those two different things happen so quickly, one after the other. So I think it's something that we should point out and we should continue to talk about over the upcoming months, especially going into November. I mean, these people clearly have an agenda, and it's not an agenda that cares about our children and cares about the community, our community's safety.
Definitely, definitely. It's crazy. And also the ACLU, they've done some good things in the past, but they opposed locking up child sex traffickers for life. And then they also are supporting the prostitution bill all within 2 days. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. You can't make this stuff up. And of course, there was also an article in the newspaper like that same day about this sex trafficking scheme of prostitution run out of a Denver bar. And they said young girls. They didn't say how young they were, but it makes me wonder. And gosh, absolutely horrible stuff. But if, for people just joining, Representative Bradley is going to join us here at about 7:30. We're going to talk about some of the bills being heard this week. I only want to bring up the first bill before she jumps in because that's her bill, the Second Amendment Protection Act. So Monday is President's Day. We get a 1 day reprieve from our state legislature. So tomorrow, February 16th, the state legislature will not convene due to President's Day, thankfully. So we get an extra day. That's nice. A short week this week. But on Tuesday, there's some really important bills being heard. We're going to talk about all the ones of note, but upon adjournment of the House. So the House usually convenes about 10 in the morning, could convene a little earlier on a Tuesday, but then it'll adjourn at some point. So you kind of got to be standing by, unfortunately. There's not a set time here, but we're going to talk to Representative Bradley when she joins us here in just a few minutes. But House Bill 261021 is the Second Amendment Protection Act. I'm going to share this in the chat on YouTube here, folks. You got to look at this bill. It is such a brilliant bill because the Representative Bradley and Representative Brooks went through and they list every single infringement upon our rights, all of these state laws related to firearms and other weapons, and repeals all of them. But it's just great to see this laundry list listed of all the different ways they're infringing on our God-given right to keep and bear arms. The Democrats in our state legislature have done everything possible to make it impossible for legal citizens to carry firearms. And you can read through this entire list. It would take all night to go through all of this in detail, but it is good stuff. And very, very happy to see this bill being put forward. And it is important for us to speak out, to testify in favor of this bill. Folks, I'd love to see hundreds of pro gun Coloradans show up in person or online and testify in support of this great bill. We need to show them their support. We need to show our Liberty leaders like Representative Bradley and Representative Brooks the support from people in our community. And then we also need to show the Democrats that this is something we are passionate about. This is something we are going to win on eventually. Don't get me wrong. We know that the Democrats are going to kill this in the committee on Tuesday. It's even more important that we show up and testify. We cannot give up. Why does the left win in Colorado? Why does the left win so much across the country? It's because they don't give up. They show up to everything. They fight. They make noise. They get involved and they fight. And they know they're going to win eventually because they keep chipping away at it. If you believe in freedom and liberty, you got to have that kind of perspective. You got to say, I know we're going to lose this battle, but it's just one battle in the war. We show up, we fight, we have a good showing, we make our points, we punish these bad legislators, these anti-gun authoritarian Democrats, by making them spend an entire day listening to pro-gun Coloradans explain why they're wrong to try and deprive us of our God-given rights. But you got to read this whole preamble here in the bill, the legislative declaration. It is great. I'll just read it briefly here, into some parts of it. For more than 15 years, the state of Colorado and successive general assemblies have waged an unrelenting and deliberate assault on the constitutional right of the people to keep and bear arms. Under the false pretense of public safety, lawmakers have enacted a steady stream of punitive, ideologically driven gun control measures designed not to stop criminals, but to exhaust, intimidate, and disarm law-abiding gun owners. Wow, well said. In the most two In the two most recent regular legislative sessions, the General Assembly passed more than a dozen anti-gun laws that infringe on individuals' due process rights, destroy family-owned businesses, criminalize ordinary behavior, and drive hardworking Coloradans out of the state. These actions represent not governments, but hostility toward the people whose rights this General Assembly is sworn to protect. The Founding Fathers did not draft the United States Constitution as a suggestion, nor did they leave its meaning open to political fashion or activist reinterpretation. They wrote it plainly and deliberately to restrain government power. The Second Amendment could not be more clear. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The rights protected by the Second Amendment are not limited, not conditional, and not negotiable. The Second Amendment does not exist for sport, recreation, or even personal defense alone. Its core purpose is to ensure that ultimate power remains with the people, not centralized in an overreaching government that believes itself immune from constitutional limits. Every attempt to weaken, regulate, or nullify rights protected by the Second Amendment is an attempt to consolidate power away from the citizenry and toward the state. Wow, I get goosebumps. I mean, I have chills after reading that, folks. You got to read this whole bill. This has to be a conversation piece. We have to show up. We have to have a voice. This is what we're fighting for, folks. This is why we want Colorado to be a free state. This is why we show up at committee hearings. This is why we show up on these live streams every Sunday night. This is why we fight so hard to have a voice, flip bad seats in the legislature. And Representative Bradley's about to join us. Michael, any thoughts on this before she does?
Yeah, bills like this are why we need you to fight in the general election so that way we can actually give people like Max Brooks, Brandi Bradley, the opportunity to actually have a chance to bring more legislation like this. The more we fight, the more we're going to win. The more we win, the more we'll be able to pass in the legislature, and we will be able to one day pass the Second Amendment Protection Act. And it's only going to be a matter of time before we do. But the only way it's going to happen is if we actually start fighting.
Well said, sir. And we do have Representative Brandi Bradley. Representative Bradley, thank you so much for taking time to join us this evening and talk about your very important legislation. And I'm hoping to get some good insider information on what's going on in the legislature as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's always a fear out in rural Douglas County. Are you going to hear me okay?
Awesome. Well, how's it been going? Obviously, we know terrible is the answer to that down at the state capitol, but any other general impressions? What's the first thing people need to know about what's happening in the state legislature this year?
I mean, terrible. No, we're going to fight. I think that they need to know that there's fighters that are putting everything on the line. I think that people are seeing my she May is doing such a great job getting all of our videos out. I think before I even sit down, you've posted things and she's gotten great clips out. And that's what I'm telling everyone, it used to be just in the Golden Dome and now we're shouting it outside the rooftops and now people are paying attention. And I give you guys all the credit, Big Timber Lodge and some of these big Logic and Liberty. We've got some really great social media accounts that are shouting it from the rooftops, and I applaud all of you for doing that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so important, I think, because, like you said, the legislators, the authoritarian Democrats, have gotten away with so much over the years without public scrutiny. We see the people like Kyle Clark who are willing to ambush Republican legislators over campaign speeches, nothing to do with legislation, and yet all this horrible legislation like prostitution goes through, and the media is either providing cover for these Democrats or not saying anything at all. So I think it's so important that alternative voices get out there, and we have so much power with social media now to make that happen. So yes, you have a great team there with Shumay posting stuff. Folks, if you're not following Representative Brandi Bradley on X, you definitely need to, and on Facebook, Representative Ken DeGraff and others who have so much content coming out every single day. Awesome. Well, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Second Amendment Protection Act?
I'm so excited. I've never run a Second Amendment bill before. What people don't know is there's a group of us that sit down in the summer and kind of go over different bills that we want to run. A lot of them are protect women in sports and pro-life legislation, small business protections. Max Brooks runs a lot to protect the IDD community. And we were just thinking, what should we do to protect the Second Amendment? There's been just an onslaught of 30 different bills since 2013. They haven't done anything to make our safe state safer, and all it's done is make us jump through now 8 different hoops. And as a woman who just got a restraining order against a very insane, delusional man, it just brought perspective. I need to be able to protect my kids, and luckily I own guns and I have the greatest equalizer at my fingertips. And I thought to myself, going through all of these different court hearings, how sad it is for women in rural parts of Colorado that will have to wait 6 months to a year to go through these trainings because there's not enough people to do these trainings. And I just thought they're sitting ducks. How sad is this for the people of Colorado, especially the women? And I thought I'm going to run this bill, and it's a great messaging bill. And people are like, well, why run it? I've talked to several people on the phone. Why not run it? I mean, we need national attention as to what these Democrats are doing. And my opening statement is going to be during the anti-ICE resolution. How many times did Rep. Garcia and Rep. Bacon talk about the Constitution? How many times did they point to the Constitution? I cannot wait to throw that in their face. I am so excited. I'm like a kid on Christmas Eve. So excited.
Thanks for joining us, Rep. Bradley. You're always, I consider you the strongest fighter in the legislature on either side of the Capitol. If you guys aren't watching, if people aren't watching the Colorado channel, you absolutely should, because it's so much fun to see you down there at the Capitol. Absolutely get into it. You're not afraid to get messy. You're not afraid to get dirty, and it's so much fun to see it. So, first off, appreciate everything you're doing down there. My first question for you is: you brought up women who are impacted by all of this gun control legislation. What can you tell us about how these gun control legislate measures that have been introduced over the last 15 years have absolutely uh, destroyed the ability for women to truly protect themselves when people like your stalker have been out there harassing them, making them feel incredibly unsafe, not knowing when their last day might be?
Well, I mean, you have to have a lockbox for your gun to be in your car. So I'm supposed to walk somewhere, in places like Denver, lock my gun away, go somewhere, and if my stalker is watching me, then hurriedly get to my car, unlock my lockbox, get my gun out so I can protect myself. I mean, are we stupid? That's the dumbest thing. I'll break the law. I put it out there. I will break the law because my life is more important than Democrat communists who think that they're trying to protect. They're protecting the criminals. The criminals are still shooting up schools. I mean, we just saw another one. Lord help us all, these children fighting for their lives in Nova Scotia. They're not protecting anything. The gun statistic, violence is not coming down. And it's sad to me. And so, when people say we're gonna have a civil war, I can see where they're coming from. A 3-day waiting period. So I'm supposed to have a 3-day waiting period when this man who has AR-15s and is posting about how joyous he is to go shoot at the gun range, and talks about a hit list that he put me on. I'm supposed to wait 3 days. Now if I don't own a gun, thankfully again I own a gun. But what are we doing to the victims in the state? I think you guys know we put criminals over victims in the state again and again. They do it with child rapists, they do it with sex traffickers. They're going to do it now. We're going to have legalized prostitution. We don't protect victims in the state. Carissa, which I ran Chris's amendment. You have a woman who hit her, violently left the scene. She had 7 continuances. We don't protect the victims in this state, and we have to start doing that.
Such a great point. So important. The criminals are getting so many opportunities to go out and reoffend, be let out on the street. The incompetency laws, all of it, the cash, no cash bail, personal recognizance bonds, all of it. And it's like everything the legislature is doing is making life easier for criminals, and then at the exact same time making life more difficult for law-abiding gun owners, taking away our ability to do these things. And one of the craziest things for me too is like it's only in Colorado. So like all the states surrounding Colorado, those people still have their rights, but we are the second class citizens. We're being turned into this open air prison camp where we don't have the same rights and freedoms that our neighbors just to the north of us do. It's absolutely crazy. But Representative Bradley, I mean, do you think things are changing in Colorado in terms of the attitude towards gun ownership? Of course, like you said during the ICE speeches and all the anti-ICE stuff and this and that, we're seeing all these people who are more on the left wanting to buy guns and talking about guns. And even during this firearm barrel, Senator Sullivan's firearm barrel registration bill, there was some people from the left zooming in. I was watching the testimony and they're like, I'm a hardcore Democrat leftist and I don't trust you to take my rights away because of Donald Trump and blah, blah, blah. But what do you think? I mean, are you hearing anything? Any information there?
Well, I think if you look up gun ownership, the fastest growing gun owners are African Americans and Hispanic women who are gun owners or want to be gun owners. And I don't think that that's only conservatives. I think that there's a fast growing community. I know that after the Egyptian man threw fuel on the poor woman who survived concentration camps, a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, I know that Spartan Defense has had a lot of people reaching out to them, Democrats that want to be responsible gun owners and take some of their courses. So I do think that we're seeing the tide change. You can't live in the second to third most least safe state. We are the eighth most violent state to live in. We're the first for auto and property theft. And I love it. I went viral, right? Talking about, do you actually believe what you're saying? Do you rehearse this in the mirror? Because they can say that crime's going down because we're not putting criminals in jail. We're releasing them PR bonds. We're not putting them in jail. We have bail reform, bond reform, all of these things. And so they can say crime is going down, but no one believes that. We see smash and grabs every single day. I have people sending me videos all the time in different parts of Colorado, Arvada, Denver, Douglas County, because the crime is trying to come down here. We prosecute it here, so good luck with that. But crime's not going down. They can preach their little statistics all they want.
Here in Colorado, we have a very, very divided legislature, particularly the House. We have in my opinion, some of the best legislators on the right, and then we have some of the worst legislators on the left in the House. A lot of those people are DSA members. So how do we justify, especially some of these talking points of the Democrats who say Donald Trump is a fascist, Donald Trump is coming to take our guns, so we need to take your guns away from you so you have less of a chance of being able to fight the federal government if Donald Trump is actually what they say he is. So how do we fight that sort of cognitive dissonance among the left side of the legislature?
Well, I mean, I think that they're losing ground. They can't read the room, right? Let's just take trans rights. They want to groom children. Now they're going to
Mm-hmm.
take children away if parents don't groom their children or affirm their mental illness. So I don't know that people are still listening to the DSA Democrats. They're fighting within their own caucus. I mean, people are looking at them like, why have you guys gotten so crazy? The pendulum has swung so far left that a lot of Democrats have voted for Trump for the first time ever. I mean, you take Jennifer Say with XXXY Athletics. I mean, she loved her party for so long, and then she's like, "Holy, what are we doing?" I mean, y'all have pushed so far left that I don't even recognize my own party anymore. And I think that they're not reading the room, so I don't even worry about fighting them. It's the same, Michael, as them saying HR1 is the reason we can't have nice things in Colorado, and Tabor's the reason we can't have nice things in Colorado. HR1 doesn't go into effect until July or August. No, you cast this wide net on Medicaid. You enrolled able-bodied people instead of what Medicaid was intended for. It was made to be a swing, not a hammock. They've made it this entitlement program where the churches and the community were supposed to be involved, and now it's Donald Trump's fault. Well, no, we're changing the narrative. That's not truth. The truth is, you guys cast this wide net. Now the taxpayers are sick of paying for everything that you've cast, and we're exposing the truth. It's not HR1's fault. It's because you're paying $400 million for illegal immigrants instead of taking care of the people that actually are the tax-paying citizens of Colorado. So I think we're fighting their false narratives because they've pushed and pushed and pushed. It reminds me of that big trumpet where it's like vomiting all the LGBTQ stuff into the kid's ear. I think that that's what they've done. They've pushed it so much that the people of Colorado are like, we've had enough. Like, we don't even believe what you're saying anymore. And I'll tell you, the anti-gun stuff, I watched when the Palestinians came into that music festival and the Israelis were trying to protect their homes and all their guns were locked up. And I thought to myself, that will never happen to me and my children. They will never lock up my guns. I will never not be able to protect my children. And I can't imagine what those people, I'm sure it was the same thing. We need to lock up your guns. We need to make your kids safe. And then all these people were sitting ducks. No, that will never happen.
Wow. Wow. So this Tuesday, folks, definitely people, Tuesday, February 17th, upon adjournment of the State House, House Committee Room 107. So on the first floor, House Judiciary Committee, we need people to show up, testify on the Protect the Second Amendment Act. Representative Bradley, what would you say to people who are the naysayers? There's plenty of them online. We all see them every day. Oh, it's not going to pass. Oh, it's a waste of time. Oh, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that, whatever. What would you say to those people?
I mean, is sitting on your couch helping win the state back? If you want to be a naysayer, then move to a red state. It's not good there either. In my home state of Tennessee, they don't have a constitutional carry because there was a trans person that came in and shot up a school, and the governor was like, "Well, we can't pass constitutional carry now." Listen, it's not any better in red states. So get off your couches, stop being naysayers, stop sending me emails like it's not going to pass. Guess what? Aaron Lee is going to get three ballot initiatives, two of my bills. How about I didn't run Protect Women in Sports and I didn't run Stop Puberty Blockers for Minors? How about I just was like, you know what, it's just a messaging bill. I shouldn't run those. Then she wouldn't have the ballot initiatives that are going to go on the ballot for all of us to vote on. There's a method to the madness. And come let us hear that you want your Second Amendment protected. I mean, you can sit on the couch and complain, or you can come out and protect your rights and tell the people of Colorado and the communists that want to keep taking them away, we're not going to stand by and let that happen. When 700 people testified for 1312 and dads were holding their kids' hands and were there for 7 hours, they made a statement. We're going to continue to make statements, and the pendulum's never going to swing back the other way if people are just like, oh, poor, pitiful Colorado, we just need to move. I mean,
Yeah, well said. Just a quick follow up there. I think it's so it kind of shows why the left wins because they don't give up, right? If they're in a red state or there's a policy, they're going to show up at every committee hearing. They're going to get out of control. They're going to lay down on the floor. They're going to do everything they can, even if they can't win, because they want to make the other side suffer, for lack of a better word. They want to prove their point. They want to control the narrative. They want to shift things, and they shift it one step at a time. And it might take them decades. That's how they took over Colorado. But unfortunately, we have so many people who are on the liberty side, I'll say, in Colorado who we want all or nothing. But it's a long game, folks. It's a chess match, and we got to play one step at a time. So you hit the nail on the head there, Representative Bradley. I think it's so important that people show up and speak out. And how many times has there been a bill heard in committee hearing where you hear a bill sponsor or somebody say, oh, well, nobody came to testify against the bill, or nobody came to show up in support of this bill. So, nobody from my district said anything about it. So it's not my fault I'm voting against it. I mean, that kind of thing does happen, right?
It does. It happens a lot. They say, well, no one came to testify. I mean, we had at our our forum on Friday, someone from Woodrow's district, someone from Garcia's district. People are coming out and it's so empowering. And I had a lady say, well, what are we supposed to do when they're eating or looking at their phone? I said, call them out on it. Call them out on it. It's so disrespectful. I remember subbing in on finance for somebody during Senate Bill 3. And there is a gentleman that was testifying, and he pulled up his phone and said, I'm sick of all of you Democrats not listening while you're taking away my rights. And he videotaped every single one of them. And I stood up and applauded him. Absolutely. This is your house, and they are taking away your rights. You should absolutely call them out for being on their phone and eating and laughing and joking. This is not funny. This is not funny. The founding fathers said shall not be infringed. They didn't say shall have a waiting period, shall be 21 years old, shall jump through 8 hoops, and CPW should have access. They did not say that. And if you're as mad as me, then you put your 2 minute speech together and get down there and fight for your children and fight for your grandparents that paved the way for all of us. And let's get this state back.
We're
I'm
talking a lot about,
fiery.
yes, I love it. I love it. Uh, when it comes to your bill on Tuesday, what is the most impactful thing that we can say to, especially to these Democrats, because this is a heavily Democratic your bills, the members of this committee are heavily made up of Democrats. So what is the most impactful thing we can tell these Democrats to really sway their opinion on this bill?
Well, I mean, I don't know that you're going to sway their opinion. I don't care. Like, speak up and have courage for the people of Colorado. So maybe next week and the next anti-gun bill that comes through, the Senate bills that are going to come through the House, maybe 70 more people will sign up because they heard testimony on Tuesday. That's what we're trying to sway. We're trying to get people off the couch to come in and have the boldness and the courage to testify for their rights and to have the knowledge to be able to do so. We're not trying to change the opinion of Rep. Garcia or Yara Zokai, who compares parent groups to the KKK. What I think would be great is during their anti-ICE, resolution, how many times they said the Constitution, how they raise their hand and say they're solemnly swearing to uphold the Colorado Constitution and the US Constitution. Call out that hypocrisy. They don't get to pick and choose. I love it. It's the same thing when they go up and talk about First Corinthians and how we're supposed to love our neighbors and our immigrant friends. No, you don't get to pick one verse of the Bible. You don't get to pick one amendment out of the Constitution. You're supposed to read the whole thing. You're supposed to swear to take an oath to protect the entire Constitution, not one amendment out of the Constitution. I call them out on that. I watched your anti-ICE resolution where Garcia said 15 times, Constitution, Constitution. No, no, this is the Second Amendment. If anything, you should have read the first and the second, but you violate both of those every time you're in session. Call them out on
Definitely.
that.
Well said. Call them out, take photos, take video, do everything you can. And now we have video for the committee hearings for testimony. So there's so much opportunity. Like you said, it's so much of it, I think, is just getting the information out there, like you said, kind of before. But yeah, get down there, get clips of speeches, let's make an impact and make this thing count, I think is so important on Tuesday. But Representative Bradley, just shifting gears slightly, there's so much that happens behind closed doors at the state capitol. What would you say is something that people need to be aware of, maybe that's not being widely reported?
Well, I mean, I'm going to give you worst case scenario and then nuggets that I like to talk about too, because I think people are like, we need to move. Colorado's horrible, and I'm seeing some significant change. I think the lack of decorum. I've had a lot of people email me and they're like, Rep. Bradley, when you were up there talking about the IDD community and crime going up, it sounded like a kindergartner's classroom. And yeah, it does. Why are they not taking this seriously? Like I swore an oath. I'm up there speaking for my district, and I'm trying in every committee room I'm in, no matter if it's a Democrat-led bill, I'm taking note after note after note. I'm listening, I'm asking questions. They go in with a preconceived vote. I had a lobbyist the other day. We hope we can count on your support on Wednesday. I said, don't ever send me a text that you hope you can count on my support for anything. Like I'm going to go in and listen to testimony, and then I'll vote how I'm going to vote. But don't ever send me a text like that. That is what's so frustrating. Like, have the respect. I know you're the majority during supplementals for the budget. Just yes, yes, yes. You see the Republicans, some voted yes on some things, some voted yes on other things. But I looked at Regina English and I'm like, man, it must be so easy just to push the yes button all the time. It's so frustrating. And that's why I think November is going to be such a clinch time because it's so frustrating that these people they're just puppets. They just get to push the yes button. And I'm going through the supplementals and I'm reading, okay, Office of Civil Rights, well, no on that one, or this one goes for the IDD community. We definitely want to do this one. This one is going to add more beds in DOC. Absolutely. We need to put more criminals in, prison. And so I think that people think that maybe Democrats are paying attention. They're not. It sounds like a kindergartner room. Now, on the other side of that, we had beautiful Bibles placed on our desks this year, our names put on them, our district put on them. And it's something like I've never seen before. I think that God is really moving in our state. I said this on Friday. I see mustard seeds being planted. Um, I feel like there's a real change in the environment this year. I sit next to Rep Luck and we look around and we kind of are quiet sometimes. And just the message getting out is just different this year. I mean, you have had so many different people on your podcast and people are talking and it's like nothing I've ever seen. I think Val told me the other day, 400 people were tuned in on the Colorado channel for supplementals. Like that is not, something sexy to talk about for the Colorado legislature, but people are tuning into the smart hearings. Most people don't understand what that is, but the IDD community came, to play. And I just see the tides really changing. Is it going to take a while? 100%. I mean, Old Testament, 400 years, right, of slavery. But I am so excited to be a part of this and kind of paving the way for the next generations to hold office. And I just think people have to be hopeful because I do believe it's changing.
You're mentioning a sense of optimism, a sense of positivity, a sense of what a lot of people call white pill versus black pill, which is going to be white pill optimism, a black pill pessimism, disenchantment, etc. Um, how do we grow that within Colorado? Because there is so much infighting. You look within the state party, it's just infighting after infighting after infighting. You see other groups infighting after infighting after infighting. You see the Democrats also have their infighting, but they know when to kind of hold it together and say, okay, we're going to do a little bit of infighting, but when it comes down to it, we're going to work together. We're going to collectively make Colorado a worse place to live, and by every sense of the imagination. How do we get people to wake up and realize that we actually have a change? Because 20 years ago, we know what happened. We saw the blueprint in action and absolutely shock everyone in Colorado, and the right hasn't been able to wake up. So what is that message that we can give to the right and say, hey, wake up, we can actually do this. If they did it, we can take it back.
Oh, I will tell you the tension at the Capitol is not from the Republican Party. You can cut it with a knife. The majority party, it is stressful and I'm just kind of eating my popcorn. I'm like, this is kind of fun to watch them running around during like the ICE resolution. And then, we had that sterility bill where I went up there and they thought I was supporting the bill. And I'm like, hey, how about you don't sterilize children either? And Rep Garcia jumped up and she was yelling at Froelich. And there is so much contention right now in the Democrat Party. It is actually fun on. As far as the Republican Party, I think we have to have examples. Other people will be more willing to, you know, to lead by example. And I think that we're seeing that. I mean, Max Brooks has been great. Larry Don gets up there, a little bit more. And I think that we have to set the example of what we want Republican leadership to look like. And I think we have to call it out when it doesn't look good. And I think we have the incompetency bill. I've been screaming about that for a long time.
Wow, interesting. What about the this last week with the Children Are Not for Sale Act and then the introduction of the prostitution bill? I mean, have you seen any? I mean, I can only imagine that like the moderate Democrats are like, this does not look good for us. You know what I mean? But any sense of what I mean, especially the prostitution bill, because it's like the most wild thing I've ever seen. Like for the scope and breadth of this bill to be introduced. I mean, what was it like in the Capitol when this was coming out? Like, what were people's reactions? All the people on the inside.
Well, I talked to Rep. Lukens and she was blown away. I talked to Rep. English and she just put her hand on her head and was like, "What's next?" And then I talked to someone from Boulder and she was like, "I don't see the problem." And I thought, okay, so you think that the police are going to go up to a prostitute and ask them how old they are? Do you understand what's going to happen to our state and the trafficking and the rape and the abortions? I mean, we're paving the way, right? We're paving the way because abortion is unlimited. They don't ask the men who bring these young children in for an abortion. I think that we're opening the door for pedophilia. I think we're opening the door to lower consent. I think we're opening the door for victims to have horrific abortions. Listen, I have fought some hard bills. They better buckle up if this hits the House floor.
Is this the bill that's the step too far for the Democrats? The bill that makes people go, okay, we've had enough. We need some change inside the legislature, and we need to get a few more Republicans in.
It better be. It absolutely better be. But we saw some Democrats giving away their Bibles and throwing them away. So, I don't know, but I certainly can't wait to get them on Libs of TikTok and spread the love on what they're doing in our state. When I go to town halls and tell people that you can rape multiple children up to 2 and 3 times and get probation for 70% of the people that go in. And then the criminal defense attorneys and the ACLU says, well, probation's actually worse for these child rapists. People are blown away. So we're running that bill again in the Senate. It's going to come if they don't kill it in the Senate, and then we're going to fight really hard to get it on the ballot because I hope these child rapists go to jail for life. We were going to give them 2 to 6 years without the possibility of probation. I hope we put it on the ballot and they go to prison for life.
Well, I'm really glad you brought up the other big bill that I wanted to talk to you, or was hoping to hear from you about tonight, was Senate Bill 111, a bill you're co-sponsoring with Senator Janice Rich and Representative Regina English. And got to give a lot of credit to Representative English. She's been on bills trying to increase penalties for child rape for the last several years now with you, and it's not a not something that her caucus is willing to support, not something that the Democrats generally are willing to support, but at least she is, so that's a good sign. But yeah, great bill here, folks. Senate Bill 111. We got to show up for that one as well. It's not been assigned a date yet. It will be in the Senate Judiciary Committee at one point. But yeah, absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking to people. I think that's one of those wake up moments, kind of like what Michael was asking about, where it's like, you're telling me child rapists get out on probation or get on parole or whatever and don't actually serve jail time. Like, people don't even want to believe that. And I've heard Democrats in the state house during committee hearings say that doesn't happen. That's not true. Like, people just do not want to believe it. It's crazy. But I think you brought up a good point, Representative Bradley, with now we have taxpayer funded abortions. We're one of the top states for human trafficking. And then to add prostitution in the mix, I mean, it's like the recipe for a total collapse of society on some level, right? Am I overstating things, or would you think it's that crazy?
No, I think they're paving the way. I think that they have been, and Rep. Bottoms went on the record, and I know people think he's crazy, but look at what they've done. 2 years ago, we tried to put a stop to child trafficking. We said no more probation for these Johns that run a place of prostitution. Let's protect the kids in Colorado. They killed it. They said no because child rapists don't go to jail without a probation eligibility. So then we came back with a child rape bill and they killed that. And now they're going to put out adult or I'm sorry, prostitution, legal prostitution. And you have to sit back and wonder, right? And then Shannon Byrd had run a bill to make it a class 6 felony to expose yourself. And you had Representative Ortiz and Woodrow saying, well, it's just because maybe they have to urinate in public. No, these are untruths. And the people of Colorado need to wake up. They're letting boys go into your bathrooms, your little girls' bathrooms. They're letting them shower with them. They're letting them sleep at sleepaway camp with them. They're paving the way for the assaults to be stifling numbers. And I talk to any new person that I talk to, I tell them about my child rate bill. 1073 from last year, 111 this year. People have got to come out and testify.
I'm glad you brought up 1135. I know a few of us have nicknamed that one the I need to censor myself. We'll call them the pedal 27s. Um, Brandon knows what I'm talking about, but we call them the pedal 27s because 27 individuals on the Democratic side voted to not enhance those crimes against minors on House Bill 1020, House Bill 2311 and 35, I believe is what it's called. Um, my question to you is, we do see, in order for that to happen, that was back when we had a super minority of Republicans and a super majority of Democrats. So what are the things that can be said to certain Democrats, because there are certain Democrats that are willing, for example, we see bipartisan leadership on sponsorship with Regina English on Senate Bill 111. So my question to you is, what are some of these themes that we can present to Democrats to really get them involved and really get them on the right track with supporting proper legislation, like putting child rapists away for a long time?
That's a great question. I mean, Regina was blown away. You know, we had Chad Clifford that voted in favor of that bill, but I think he knew it was going to die in judiciary. I don't, Michael, I don't know because they honestly believe, you know, you heard Rep Zokai, Rep Garcia, Rep Mabry, Rep Bacon, and I don't believe Carter had a closing, but all said that they were victims and they didn't believe their rapist should spend life in jail. Well, we proved the statistics. These people, I think the worst offender had spent 20 years in jail, but that was because that offender had multiple things stacked against him. It wasn't just he was in jail for 20 years for child rape. Most of these people go to jail for maybe 2 to 3 years after sexually assaulting a child. These aren't people spending life in prison. We were just taking probation off the table. That's it. You just can't rape a child or children in the state of Colorado and just get probation. So these are soccer coaches and youth pastors and things like that who rape children, get prosecuted for it, and then walk out on probation. It is mind blowing to me that you can sit there as legislatures and be okay with that. And not only that, it was my pre-file bill, which means to the public listening, it was my first bill that I worked on. So those should be scheduled late February at the latest. They pushed it off, signed an extension behind mine and Regina's back, didn't get heard till late March, and then it was the last bill to be heard in judiciary. Didn't start till 9 p.m. And so rape victims didn't even get to testify until about 1 o'clock in the morning. What a slap in the face to the people that came to try to make it better and help make kids safer, that you're going to give them pretty much a slap in the face and the big middle finger that we're going to make you wait. We're going to assault you again so that you can't testify until 1 o'clock in the morning. I
Wow. Absolutely incredible, absolutely astonishing and horrifying ultimately. And it's just so important that this information gets out to people, that people understand what's truly happening in our state government and how they're not punishing the bad people in our society and instead punishing good people who want to defend themselves and their families with firearms. It's absolutely backwards, so totally crazy. But Representative Bradley, as I know you got a busy week ahead of you, so we'll let you go here shortly. But what other things do people need to know about in terms of what's happening in the state legislature this year?
Oh my goodness. I mean, always an assault on the landlords, right? I mean, the poor landlords. You know, I have, as a physical therapist, I see an eclectic amount of patients, a lot of Democrat patients that come in. And one of my patients has been a landlord for 20 years. And, you know, I think he's moving kind of more towards the middle. He's like, Brandi, what don't they understand? These people are my family. I don't raise their rent. I don't raise their utilities. Sometimes I give them loans and they're forcing my hand. I'm going to have to sell. And when I sell, big corporations swoop in. They put up, you know, warehouses or whatnot, and these people are looking for other housing. And you know, Brandon, I think that they are in search of a problem, to be quite honest with you. You know, more labor union stuff that's going to come. Zokai wants everyone that sells, vendors that sell at Coors Field and the Bronco Stadium to sell the same price hot dog. I was talking to someone that's not in politics the other day, and she's like, it's my right to spend $15 on a hot dog if I want to spend $15 on a hot dog. You know, they want Sam's and Costco to all sell everything at the same price. They hate for the free market. They hate capitalism. They hate anything that is good, that is that has been great for our society. They hate small business. And I worry about our state, but I do think people are waking up. I mean, the restaurant businesses, I think, will be assaulted again. The First Amendment, I feel like they always go after that. Parental rights will be under attack. The same things, just, another year and we'll fight them and we'll get it out. And hopefully in November, I think that they think that they're untouchable. And most of them have primaries by their own party. And a lot of them are getting primaried, and I don't think that they thought they were going to get primaried. And so we have to tell them they're not untouchable, that we're sick of them taking away our rights and we want our state back.
How,
Awesome.
how do we if these people are getting primaried, how do we kind of help that primary along as either independents or maybe or conservatives, letting individuals know, possibly our friends on the left, what are some key points that we should let these individuals know so that way they might be really invested or really involved in getting into a primary and really trying to battle some of these crazies like our Bosneckers, Zokais, Lorena Garcias, so that way they can really spend a lot, so that way we can encourage these challengers to really go after it and give everything they got.
Well, I think that the libertarians do it a little bit better than the Republicans. We need good leadership starting at our state party, and we're working behind the scenes on that. We're working behind the scenes on getting some of these really flippable seats, trying to really target some of these really flippable seats like HC 43 and Douglas County, Pascal's district, kind of in the Pueblo region, Moro's district. Some of these were only won by, like 1,000 seats. We've got a good one that's going to run against Hamrick. I don't know if he's ready for me to announce that yet, but super excited about somebody that's running in that. And I think Republicans get outspent 10 to 1. We have got to start digging in. Christians have got to not vote. I heard Jason Lupo said at our Second Amendment, 10 million hunters didn't vote last election. So you combine that with 25 million Christians, that's 35 million people. And people are like, well, election integrity, I get it. We're trying. I mean, Ken DeGraff has been trying to clean up the voter rolls. But if we have an onslaught of people voting, like Trump just won by a landslide, when it's only 3 votes in like Rebecca Kelty's district, then they're going to not want to certify the elections. But if Rebecca Kelty wins by 30,000 people, then it's a no-brainer. So we can't just sit back and say, well, elections aren't safe, we're not going to vote. Long gone are those days. Then start showing up to get to hand ballot counting and join election integrity, join to be an election judge. Don't just sit on your couch and say, oh, well, elections aren't fair. Well, you're not helping the anything in, you know, at all anyway. So
Yeah, so important. Get involved, show up, have a voice, find out who's running in your neighborhood, and maybe you're in a safe district, but just a couple miles down the road, there's a district that could use some volunteers and use some people showing up, and of course donating. Representative Bradley, you have a re-election this year, of course, every 2 years as a state representative. So definitely encourage people to support your re-election campaign and contribute to your campaign and get out there and support you during this election season. But yeah, I guess we'll let you go here. It's after 8. Any final thoughts for any of the viewers out there?
no, thank you, Michael. That I should have answered your question. I hate when politicians don't do that. I'm an elected servant, though, not a politician. Yeah, I think look at where you live, because there's a lot of times where I say, who's your representative? And people don't know. You should know. You should know. If your rights are getting taken away and we're the fourth worst state to live in for income, I mean, a family of four, I think it costs $150,000 for you to live here. We're the fourth highest. If you don't like those statistics, if you don't like paying 10 cents for a plastic bag, if you don't want Tabor taken away, then you should know who your seated House representative and your senator are. Start there and then figure out who is going to run against that communist and give $10 a month or sign up to walk or put a sign in your yard or get their newsletter, but stop sitting on the sidelines. Don't let them outspend us 10 to 1. We need money to run. We need help knocking doors. We need all hands on deck. I mean, we all have caucus coming up. We all have assemblies coming up. So sign up and be involved. Get involved. And I think that the viewers would love to be a part of it. And even if your candidate doesn't win, you can say, at least I did something.
Well said. Well said. Well, really appreciate you taking the time away from your family, away from the weekend on a Sunday night to come and join us. But really appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you down at the Capitol. And thank you for everything you do. Thank you for fighting. You get a lot of great comments here in the live chat we have going on. And look forward to talking to you again soon. But thank you so much for your time, Representative Bradley.
I'll always come on, guys. I love being on. And listen, there is hope in our state. We can only shine light in a dark state, and in those red states, they're already so bright. It's hard to and difficult to shine light. We are shining light in a dark state, and it's only going to be up from here. So come testify, come show your support for strong candidates, and we're going to get our state back.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thanks,
Well, thank you
guys.
so much. Awesome. Have a great night and take care.
All right, you
Yep.
too.
Thank you, Brandi Radley.
Thanks.
Or at Bradley. Yep.
Awesome. And thank you, everybody in the chat. We did have some great questions. I think some of them we could probably answer, Michael, as well. People were asking, does Representative Bradley think there's fraud? I'm not sure. I can't speak for her, of course, but she did mention there about being too big to rig and really getting involved. So I'm sure, like most of us probably, would think there's some fraud. There's got to be, right? People were asking about money. Where can GOP candidates get the big money? Who are the big donors out there? I think we're all asking those questions. I don't know that we have great answers for those, unfortunately. But yeah, I think there's so much opportunity here in Colorado. A lot of it is going to rely on small dollar donors and just getting involved, like Rep Bradley was saying, $10 a month could even make a huge difference. Just do what we can, fight on the margins, and find those winning battles. I think there's a lot of good legislative seats that could be flipped this year. I think maybe 5 seats in the state house, seats in the state senate, if I can talk. And I just did a video on some of that a recent video. I'll share a link to all my election videos in the chat here, but I've been doing a lot of interviews with some of our candidates running for office in those seats, and then also some strategy videos talking about, like, hey, here's some opportunities, this and that. But don't go anywhere, folks. We still got a lot more to talk about. But Michael, I'd love to hear your perspective before we move on to the next subject of tonight's live stream.
It's always great to hear her. It's always great to listen to Rep Bradley. She's really down in the depths with a lot of this craziness. She fights the tough battles, the hard battles that especially the people, the extremists like our Zokais or Lorena Garcia's, Javier Mabry, all those bills that they really love to push, and it seems, and they over the years they've gotten a lot of traction on. She's always been one of the strongest stalwarts against all of that stuff. So I am very grateful for the dedication that she's given over the last few years, and it's not easy. I mean, look at what's gone on with her in her personal life from her son's accident and what's gone on. She's been very public and open about that, and in spite of everything that she's had going on in her personal life, she's still at the Capitol and she's putting on a brave face and she's doing everything she can to really protect our rights. And the only thing I can do is commend her for everything that she's doing in spite of everything that she's going through. I mean, and that battle's still not over. So I'm very, very grateful for everything that Rep Bradley is doing for Colorado. She's one of the good ones, and we need to help her as much as we possibly can.
Agreed, 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 agreed. We got to get her back in office, keep her in there. She's one of the strongest fighters we have. Please support Representative Brandi Bradley in her reelection campaign. Follow her on social media. Her team does a great job of getting videos out of what's happening down at the House floor, and really exposes some of the worst behavior of the Democrats, and then shares some really good stuff that you won't find anywhere else coming out of the Republican side. So with that, Michael, you ready to get into the rest of the live stream here?
Let's get back into it. We got a lot of bills to cover.
Perfect, folks. So next up, we're going to be talking about some of the bills being heard this week. There's a lot of bills going through committee this week. We're going to give you some of the most important ones, really share that with you because we want to empower you to be an informed Coloradan who's going to show up, speak out, get involved at the legislative committee hearings this week. You can do it over Zoom. You can even do it with the touchtone phone. It's super easy for you to participate and to have a voice. And we do need more people to have voices, that's for sure. So don't go anywhere, folks. We got at least another hour going. So tomorrow in the House Judiciary, or Tuesday, Monday, there's no session because it's the President's Day. But Tuesday, the legislative session will reconvene, or the state legislature will reconvene. And upon adjournment of the House, so sign up for this committee hearing for the Second Amendment Protection Act. All you got to do, folks, go to leg.colorado.gov. It's that easy. Click down here to public testimony options. It's under this little committees tab. You'll always see that no matter what page you're on at that website, leg.colorado.gov. Public testimony options. And literally, it tells you you can search by bill, you can go in by date. They really upgraded this. They've actually made it a lot easier this year for you to find what you're looking for to show up and testify. So go ahead and register tonight. Show up and register. Get on there. I'll share this in the chat as well. But get in there, sign up for Tuesday for the Second Amendment Protection Act, and let's have hundreds of pro-gun Coloradans testify and talk about this bill. I think that'd be extremely important, extremely valuable. So that's what's going on in that committee. Also on Tuesday, any other thoughts, Michael, I guess, before we move on from the Second Amendment Protection Act?
Uh, Hey, the one thing I'll say is if you are planning on coming down to the legislature to, or the Capitol building, I should say, to testify, there's a lot of bills that we're going to be hearing about. You might as well sign up for another one because there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you to go to another committee hearing and testify. In fact, there's another bill that we're going to talk about later where I'm going to be testifying on that one as well. If I'm already down there, I might as well try to make as much of an impact as I possibly can. So get down there, and if there is another one, if there's another bill that you're interested in, go ahead and sign up for that one as well. Because the more you can get your voice out there, the more difference you have the opportunity to make.
Perfect. So let's stick with Tuesday here. The House Health and Human Services Committee, upon adjournment of the House as well. So these committees are going to be going on at the same time. Now, the Second Amendment Protection Act is the only bill being heard in the Judiciary Committee. This House Health and Human Services Committee does have some other bills being heard. So you probably, but again, you don't know when's one's going to go. So you got to keep them both open, keep paying attention to both of them, get on both Zooms. But this bill, I just did a video on House Bill 1056. It's a confusing topic if you're not in the whole health industry. So you can see there's 4 bills being heard in this committee on Tuesday, but this is a bill from Representative Ken DeGraff. And as we mentioned earlier, Ken DeGraff is also one of our Liberty leaders, one of our top legislative allies for the Liberty community in Colorado, one of the strongest voices for freedom and liberty we have in our state government. And this is a great bill that would actually lower prescription drug prices because it would create transparency around these employer plans where these pharmacy benefit managers are right now, because they can make a lot of, they can make a lot of money because people know prescription drugs are really expensive, medications are really expensive. Well, they really aren't that expensive, but there's a system set up in place in which these big pharmaceutical companies are able to basically rip off the people and rip off employers and healthcare providers by overcharging for prescription drugs. This bill that Representative DeGraff is running is being fought. I've seen very few bills where there's so much opposition against it, and it's all big pharma lobbyists. If you go into the Secretary of State's lobbyist search, you'll see 60 plus 60 plus pharmaceutical lobbyists who are opposing this bill because it's going to eat into their profits. It's going to make it so it's harder for them to basically deceive employers by being able to charge more money for prescription drugs that are not that expensive. I had it explained to me that, say there's like 2 pallets. It's from the same manufacturer. Say it's from Pfizer, right? This is just an example, not an actual story, but just an example. Say it's from Pfizer, and there's 2 pallets of the same drug on this heart medication or whatever. This pallet is going, a big pallet, that they use for shipping stuff if you ever worked like retail or warehousing, but a big pallet of prescription drugs that are going to go to Canada, and they're priced very, very low because Canada's kind of worked out a deal, right? And then these are the prices. These are the drugs on the other pallet that are going to U.S. markets, and they're priced 10 times as high, 100 times as high, whatever it is, because they can get away with it. It's the exact same thing. They're making buku bucks, but Big Pharma has so much money and so much power. They've really rigged a lot of our healthcare system so that they can keep profiting. House Bill 1056 is one I'm really hoping people will either testify on or listen to the committee hearing, because there's going to be supposedly some fireworks challenging some of the narratives of these Big Pharma lobbyists who are basically, from my perspective, and this is just my personal opinion, but providing misinformation to the committee members, lying to the legislators and to the community, the public, about this bill to try and stop it because it's going to directly affect their pocketbook. That's just my perspective, just my opinion, based on the information I've seen. But it's a complicated subject. But this bill is being heard Tuesday as well in the House Health and Human Services Committee upon adjournment of the State House. House Bill 1056 in House Committee Room 112. So it's on the first floor of the state capitol as well. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
Yeah, scroll up yeah, go ahead and go to this bill summary, just down just a smidge. Ah, perfect. Here we go. The bill creates the Prescription Drug Optimized Sourcing Transparency and Integrity Act to prohibit pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs, or a healthcare consultant from knowingly or making, disseminating false or misleading statements or claims to a self insured employer or policyholder about the legality or safety of a lawful prescription drug optimized sourcing program established by a pharmacy stewardship program. Simply put, they're trying to create transparency and keeping people from lying. There's nothing about simply, yeah. So basically, what this bill is going to do is it's going to make it so that way people can understand the pricing that these prescriptions truly are set at, and then they will and then they are also intended to provide more information for consumers to make a healthy choice for their bodies. That's really all this does. So there's nothing about this that's heavy-handed from the government. This is just saying, don't lie, let people know what's going on. Um, the free market in the pharmaceutical industry are not necessarily something that's how do I want to say this? It's not they it's not something that's very well understood within the pharmaceutical industry. There's so much heavy-handed regulation, partially due to lobbyists trying to create benefits for the pharmaceutical industry. That's been happening for decades. If we had a free and fair market inside our pharmaceutical industry, we would not see a lot of the costs that we have today. So I love this bill because it's going to create more pricing. It's going to create more competition within big pharma, and that's a fantastic thing for people, especially those who are already struggling to pay their medical bills. So I love this bill. It's an absolutely fantastic bill, and if you're already going down to the legislature, support this one too.
Awesome. Well said, Michael. Yeah, and it's so fascinating too because it's like okay, here's a bill that says, the people who are providing medication for these employer-based healthcare plans won't be allowed to knowingly make or disseminate false or misleading statements. And then it's like 60 pharmaceutical lobbyists sign up to oppose that. They're like, no, we can't have that. No, 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 because they need these pharmacy benefit managers to keep misleading employers so they can keep overcharging for prescription drugs. So it's a complicated subject, folks, but if you have any interest at all in healthcare policy or trying to do something about these outrageous costs that we're all basically forced to pay under this government created monopoly system, that's our healthcare system in America, then this is something to pay attention to. This is a huge subject that actually Kendegraph is being a leader on that's not being reported anywhere. It's wild. This is such an important thing. And of course, the media companies don't really know what to do about it because I don't think they understand it. And I think, there's no incentive for them to talk about it because they're probably getting advertising dollars from some of these same companies that could be affected for all I know. But nonetheless, an important bill. Really hope people show up to speak on that one. I'm going to be paying close attention as much as I can to that committee hearing because I really want to see, what happens, and hopefully we get some answers about how Big Pharma is ripping off the people of Colorado. And I think there's an opportunity at this committee hearing to really hammer on that. So, um, perfect, perfect. Well, let's move on. Also on Tuesday, upon adjournment in the House, lots going on Tuesday. The House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee, upon adjournment of the House and LSBA, that's the Legislative Services Building. So that's the building that's just south of the state capitol. It's the old museum, I think it says on the outside of the building. But there's two interesting bills here that I really wanted you to pay attention to because you may never not have heard of these, but folks, they do have something to do with our liberty and our freedom. So being heard here, we have gosh, this one makes me so mad, folks. I hate the government surveillance state that's being built around us. Folks, you come to these live streams every week. We're going to give you information you're not going to necessarily find anywhere else. House Bill 1071, Local Government Vehicle Identification System on Interstate Highways. Tisha Morrow is the worst. She is in a swing district, I would say. She can be replaced this year in 2026. I think there's an incredible opportunity there. Check this out, all you freedom lovers. Current law allows the state to locate an automated vehicle identification system, AVIS, on a highway that is part of a federal interstate highway system, but it prohibits a county, city, and county or municipality, local government, from doing so. This bill will authorize a local government to locate an AVIS on a highway that's part of the federal interstate highway system. So, just what we need is more automated vehicle identification systems. All of these cameras on highways by all these different cities and local governments and municipalities and counties. We're building a surveillance state around us, folks. This is a bad bill. Sure, some of the cameras, some of the time catch some bad people, but I think if we want a free society, we can't have this overuse of surveillance technology, especially as we're freely driving around to go to work, to go do what we want to do. Maybe you're going to a political rally. Maybe you're going to something that, somebody somewhere has an incentive to go after you for. We should have a presumption of privacy out in the public. And so this bill is being heard this Tuesday in the House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee. I really encourage people to speak against this bill. You have an opportunity, if you're already down at the Capitol, like Michael was saying, you got multiple bills you can speak on. If this is your area of expertise or an area you're really interested in, is the surveillance state that's being built around us, pay attention to this bill, folks, and please speak out against it. Reach out to those committee members, tell them to oppose this bill. What do you think, Michael?
No, I completely agree. I'm really concerned about the future. One of the good things that happened from the Super Bowl, um, I only watched a little bit of the Super Bowl, but a lot of controversy was built around this Ring AI uh, camera commercial. So much controversy about this AI camera system commercial. They made some jokes about essentially what it was is they made some jokes about being able to basically become sentient and then attack people. It caused such a controversy that Amazon is no longer going to support Ring essentially because of how bad public sentiment was on this bill. So that tells me that there is hope for Colorado if the nation is waking up to what's going on with all this AI surveillance. And a lot of people don't necessarily realize that AI surveillance is happening on the roads. So if we can make people more informed about what's going on with Flock and all the privacy issues with AI camera systems like Flock and how they can absolutely harm people and they can hallucinate, just like what happened in Broomfield a while back, where a woman was falsely reported and the cop came and walked in and said, "I know what you did. You need to stop lying to me. I know exactly what happened," and it was completely false hallucination, not based off the AI. Let people know what's going on, make them informed, and if they are concerned about what's going on with Ring camera systems, then maybe they should be concerned about Flock as well. So definitely get down there if you have the opportunity and oppose this bill.
Definitely well said. Yeah, there's so much going on. It's crazy. Like so much is happening across the country and across the world. You got the Epstein stuff. Then you have like sex trafficking bills in Colorado. You have this Flock Super Bowl commercial and the controversy there. And then we have a bill here in the legislature to kind of do something similar. And it's like it ties so much together. It's so interesting. But folks, we actually have a good bill to talk about. A good bill to talk about. Pretty excited about this one. Unfortunately, this failed last year, but they brought it back. Carlos Baron and I can't roll my R's, sorry, and Byron Pelton there to register and drive military surplus vehicles. Now, I love the idea of being able to buy a decommissioned military tank or a Pinzgauer or some sort of big old vehicle from World War II. I love those World War II Jeeps, but to be able to, I have to register them. Don't get me wrong. I hate the idea we got to register our vehicles and pay those outrageous taxes and so-called fees. Bad news, but nonetheless, this is still moving in the right direction, right? More choice, more consumer choice. So current law requires a motor vehicle to be designed for operation on a highway in order to be covered by the Uniform Motor Vehicle Law, which governs driver's licenses, registrations, blah, blah, blah. This bill authorizes the owner of a surplus military vehicle to register the vehicle with the Department of Revenue and be issued a license plate if it follows these different things. If it's registered, it may be driven on roadways and the title can be converted from showing off highway vehicle to highway use vehicle. But the vehicle must comply, blah, 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 with all this other stuff. So don't get me wrong, I'd love to see our vehicle laws loosen up quite a bit, but it's one small step in the right direction. And hey, if it's possible that we get this passed and all of a sudden we can buy some cool old military surplus vehicles and be driving them around, that's a good thing. It's a win for liberty. We got to get our next killdozer, tongue in cheek, just joking, folks. But get all these stuff for when the commies, when Russia invades and we got to go full Red Dawn, right? So Nonetheless, all tongue-in-cheek joking there, but this is a good bill, and I'm happy to see it introduced again, and I'm hoping we can get it passed. What do you think, Michael?
No, I agree. I'd love to see this thing get passed. I don't know if it will. I mean, we don't. I mean, with Colorado, unfortunately, if you don't have a Democrat, you're the odds of getting. If you don't have a Democrat as a prime sponsor, you likely won't get your bill passed. But I'd love to see this thing passed. I mean, it's a good bill. It's very clean. It's very simple, and it would help out Colorado. There really shouldn't be an issue with this bill. Um, let people have more choice.
Folks, if this is something you care about, Tuesday, February 17th, in the House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee, upon adjournment, testify in support of this bill, please. Use your voice. Why not? Send an email in, show up, and do remote testimony, any of it you can. But two interesting bills, one good bill, one bad bill being heard on Tuesday in this committee. But let's keep going, folks. We got a lot to cover this week. So now we're on Wednesday. So that's just what's happening Tuesday in the state capitol, some bills of note. Tuesday, this is the Capitol or the state floor, the Senate floor, excuse me, the Senate floor. So I wanted to bring this up. We usually don't talk about a lot of the floor proceedings, but there's two important bills there that are being heard. Well, one really important bill and another I do want to mention. So, folks, pay attention Wednesday on the Colorado channel on YouTube, and you can watch. And hopefully, we're going to see some great senators speaking out against this record keeping and regulation of sale of firearm barrels. So, Senate Bill 43 is a ridiculous bill that's going to create a registry of everybody who buys a firearm barrel, a barrel for your gun, a gun part that is not a functional weapon, but to buy it, and they're going to keep a regulation on it. They're going to restrict who can buy and sell them. They're going to try and throw people in jail if you buy a firearm barrel from your buddy who has an extra one sitting around, or you buy it online, or you try and, they're going to try and make that a crime and then regulate and control who owns firearm barrels. It's Tom Sullivan's attempt to basically try and deprive us of our God-given rights. So bad bill being heard on Wednesday on the Senate floor. Pay attention to that. There should be some good clips for speeches. We need to call them out. We need to pay attention. We need to change the narrative on this. And then Senate Bill 53, the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority mortgage post officers, first responders. Now, don't get me wrong. Sure, I love the firefighters, the cops, paramedics, whoever, first responders. Wonderful, great. Thank you for your service. But I don't think you should be getting special subsidized loans to buy a house with zero money down and all these little bit extra incentives that we, the taxpayers, are having to subsidize. I don't like the idea of creating a special class of people because they're government employees. They get special benefits that the rest of us have to pay for. It's the exact same thing that the Democrats do for illegal aliens and some of these other protected groups that they love. And you see Republicans do the same thing to their little best friends there and say, no, these people deserve special privileges and special subsidies that everybody else has to pay for. It's not right. It's not equality. It's not a free market. It's not whatever limited government, whatever you want to call it. Sure, everybody should have a house, whatever, but don't have the taxpayers try and subsidize somebody's house purchase because they're a government employee. I think that's a step in the wrong direction. Senate Bill 453. So those two bills are being heard on the Senate floor on Wednesday. You can watch and tune in on the Colorado channel, make some clips, and yeah, pay attention to that. What do you think of this one, Michael?
No, I agree. I mean, this is an opportunity where while we're not talking about a committee hearing where we can sign up to testify, you still have the opportunity to send an email to your local representative. Heck, you don't necessarily have to send it exclusively to your local representative in the Senate. You can go ahead and send it to anybody. You could also send this to you could send emails to the prime sponsor and ask them to kind of clarify why they're presenting this bill as well. So you have opportunity to make your voice heard, reach out, and let them know how you feel about this. And again, this might be another opportunity for you to sway a Senate, your Senate representative's opinion.
Yeah, and just with Senate Bill 53 one more time, because I know I'm going to get pushback because there's some Republicans on the bill. But Liberty Scorecard says they oppose this bill because, quote, this government intervention distorts the housing market, increase costs for other Coloradans, and expands state influence in private finance without proven public benefit. These programs already exist for first responders. So it violates the principles of equal protection, the rule of law, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and limited government. So it's a bad bill, folks. And yeah, pro-liberty legislators, whether they're Republicans or not, should not be supporting a bill like that. That's Senate Bill 53. And then, of course, the anti-gun bill is absolutely egregious, and it needs to be called out every time we see it. So perfect. All right, Wednesday in the House Health and Human Services Committee. So we're over on Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. in the House Committee Room 112, so the first floor. Two interesting bills. I'm really excited for 1087, but also the pregnant person one is kind of interesting as well. But let's bring this up. So, folks, if any of these bills interest you, it's something you can definitely talk about. Definitely something to get involved in here. So let's talk about 1085. This is from Rebecca Kelty, Representative Rebecca Kelty, who unfortunately is not coming back next year. She's the only sponsor on the bill. But basically, this would require a pregnant person, healthcare provider, to offer a pregnant person the option to fill out a do not abort form. The bill requires a pregnant person's healthcare provider to offer a pregnant person the option to fill out a do not abort form that expresses the person's wishes to not receive an abortion in the event the person is incapacitated or incapable of communicating. If the pregnant person fills out this do not abort form, the healthcare provider shall input the form into the pregnant person's medical record. And of course, it's ridiculous that we're talking about pregnant persons and not pregnant women, obviously. And I know there's mixed opinions out there in the liberty community about abortion, generally speaking, but I wanted to bring this up because I know it's important for a lot of people out there. What do you think, Michael?
I'm pro-life. Colorado running a bunch of pro-life legislation is not necessarily the most popular thing, but what I do think is interesting about this bill is this is absolutely a messaging bill, and I personally think this is a great message. But Democrats love to talk about how they're pro-choice, 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 and they even pin pro-choice versus anti-choice. So they call people who are pro-life anti-choice as a way to demonize people, as a kind of like almost as if they're the pro-civil rights people, and people who care about whether or not you're harming a child are anti-choice and anti-civil rights, or um, which is a very, very odd way to describe the pro-life movement, because you could also say that these individuals are just anti-life because the way they are choosing to freely murder children um, while they're still in the womb. What you're going to see with this bill is you're going to see this is simply put giving an individual the option to give life to their child if they ever are in a situation where it's the end of their life, or yeah, if it's the end of their life, or if they don't have the ability to um express their desires on what would happen if they're ever in an end of life situation where they have to make the choice between the mother's life and the child's life. Um, this is a very, very important bill in my opinion, and I want you to watch how they respond in this committee hearing, because you're going to suddenly see people say that they don't want to give people the choice. You're going to see a lot of Democrats come out as very anti-choice because this is a choice bill. These individuals aren't going to actually, the Democrats aren't going to support this whatsoever. And you'll see there is no Democrat prime sponsor from either the House or the Senate. And I think they've pretty much laid their cards on the table with this bill, because they're not going to support this as a if they were, because if they were truly pro-choice, they would be supporting the mother's choice to give their child life in this instance. So, if you can testify on this one, I completely understand. I know, as Brandon was saying, the liberty community is very split on this. There's a lot of people who are pro-choice, and there's a lot of people who are pro-life. So, um, but if you do have the opportunity, record this one, because this is where I do think it's going to be very interesting to hear how Democrats reveal themselves on this issue, because we're going to hear a lot of quote unquote anti-choice messages from the Democrats.
Yeah, well said, Michael. And that's very interesting because it is really a pro-choice type of bill in terms of giving people the option to say they want to keep their baby if they're incapacitated. I mean, hard to argue with that as being um, a bad bill. So good stuff. Let's also in this committee, same committee hearing. This one's going to be the real fiery one for sure. So folks, if these are issues you care about, this is a great committee hearing to tune into, to testify in, and to show up this coming Wednesday. You can have a voice in the process here, folks. This is House Bill 1087, Safeguard Minors from Sex Altering Interventions, from Representative Scott Bottoms. So let's hope we get the kind of turnout we did last week for the 1082 bill, the No Child for Sale Act. But this bill basically would say it would prohibit a person, I won't read the whole thing, but it'll prohibit a person, healthcare provider, or mental health professional from knowingly performing surgery on, prescribing, administering, or providing hormones or puberty blockers to a minor for the purpose of altering the minor's biological sex characteristics, or providing mental health therapy, counseling, or referrals that promote or affirm a minor's belief that the minor was born in the wrong body, or that the minor needs medical intervention to address distress related to the minor's biological sex. So this bill would destroy the entire trans youth agenda. It would protect kids who are making these life-altering decisions that are going to change and haunt them potentially for the rest of their lives. This bill would protect them. So I think it's a great bill. I'd love to see a lot of people testify in support of this one. Hopefully, we get some really good testimony. And yeah, I mean, we know the Democrats are going to kill it, but folks, but it's nonetheless important to show up, get involved, and have a voice if this is something you're passionate about. Any thoughts on this one, Mike?
Brandon, can you pop up who the committee members are of the Health and Human Services Committee in the House? Oh, we've got some good ones in here and we've got some bad ones. So I'm very excited to see how this one is going to play out. I'd love to hear the committee on this one as well. If somebody has the opportunity to record this one, if you're going to testify, please record it as well. Or you could possibly live stream it on YouTube. For example, Big Ten Burr Lodge does a few bills a year where he just records where he just shares the live stream. Love to hear this one. Love to get these people on record. Brandi Bradley, is going to be an absolute fighter for this one. But you also have people like Katie Stewart, Lisa Foray, Lindsey Gilchrist. They're gonna really come out against this bill, and I cannot wait to hear them absolute. I cannot wait to hear them make an absolute fool of themselves because they don't understand that we need to protect children and what particularly from grooming. These people are making, just like when it comes to child rape, these people are also making life altering decisions for kids. Um, Particularly when it comes to the trans agenda, we need to do everything we can to protect these individuals. Kids are growing; they don't have fully formed brains. They don't. A lot of people don't know what they want to be at these at young ages. So to tell them that they suddenly know what they want to be for the rest of their lives, particularly from a sex related perspective, when they're just trying to figure out life. That's incredibly concerning to allow them to make these permanent decisions that are gonna leave them with devastating consequences down the road. That a lot of these gender affirming care surgeons and trans agenda radicalists, extremists, are trying to um, prevent them from even understanding the consequences and the long term side effects of the decisions that they're going to make.
Definitely, Michael. Well said, sir. And we got Katie Stewart, we got Eliza Hamrick, two swing seats. So having them vote against this and having them vote against a bill that's going to protect minors from these horrible things is can be important. So another reason, folks, to pay attention to these committee hearings is to see how these legislators who are in swing districts, who maybe potentially could lose their seat this November, how they vote, what kind of policy decisions they make, because that needs to be conveyed to the voters, and the voters should be holding them accountable based on bad votes or good votes, I think. So interesting stuff. Really hope people show up for this one. This is huge. Please get involved, people, this Wednesday. Also in Wednesday, in the House Judiciary Committee at 1:30 p.m., House Committee Room 107. I got a video coming out with Leslie Hollywood tomorrow morning, Monday morning, talking about this bill, and she really did a deep dive into it. But this is the horrible anti 3D printing gun bill. So it's insane. It's absolutely crazy. There's so much to it. Basically, there's so many questions that remain unanswered in terms of how they're going to even regulate this. Basically, folks, the worst part about this bill is that if you own the files, if you have files on your computer, if you have an image on your computer about how to build a gun, you could be going to jail. You could basically get the highest class misdemeanor, and if it happens again, you're a felon and now can't legally own guns anymore. Just because you had an image, maybe you have a book on how to 3D print guns, that would be illegal. That is insane. That is so egregious. It's also a First Amendment issue. distributing digital instructions that may be used to program a 3D printer or CNC milling machine to manufacture or produce a firearm or firearm component. So this creates a whole new class of crime around three-dimensional printing, and it is absolutely horrific, and it's totally backwards, totally authoritarian. Can't speak as this is one of the worst bills we have, and this is being heard this week, folks, this Wednesday in the House Judiciary Committee, 1:30 p.m. Please testify on this. Please show up. Please speak out. Do it over Zoom. Show up in person. But we have to fight this one as hard as we can because this one is absolutely insane. And let's go ahead and Michael, if you were going to ask, let's look at who's on that House Judiciary Committee. Yeah, so great that we got Ava Flanell, who's a big pro-gun influencer on there. And then, of course, we got some of the worst of the worst there otherwise who are going to, pass this egregious bill. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be a good amendment. There should be a good amendment on this bill, I think, removing the free speech part. But nonetheless, this is a huge bill. One of the biggest anti-gun bills we've seen this year because it's not just about guns. It's about having digital files. It's about having code. You have code on your computer. You're sharing code to people. Now you're a criminal. Absolutely utterly insane. All these legislators who sponsor it have no place in government and should have no place in Colorado ultimately. What are your thoughts, Michael?
No, I agree. This is modern day book burning. Absolutely asinine that this is something that Democrats think is okay to bring up because we hear all the time Democrats talk about book burning, book burning, book burning. We've heard it for years, especially when it comes to things like children's books on certain topics like gender and sexuality, where they will put in basically soft corn, uh, yeah, soft core, we'll say corn instead of the other word, on right out on display in public libraries, particularly school libraries. It's incredibly concerning what's happening in our schools. So yeah, they'll turn around and say, "Yeah, that's book burning. That's book burning. That's book burning." But what is this? If they actually believed the messages that they pretend to believe in, this would not be a bill right now. So this is just because at the end of the day, there's nothing controversial about this. This is code. This is just instructions on how to build something. There should be no regulation or no restriction on this. This is purely free speech. And at the end of the day, Democrats have truly exposed themselves with this legislation.
Definitely a step too far. Definitely egregious. Definitely communism, as somebody as Scott in the chat just said. Yes, a horrible, horrible bill. Please, people, speak out, have a voice, or email, call the committee members, get people involved in the 3D printing community, even if they're not gun people involved in this. Because what if all of a sudden they say, "Oh, 3D printers can't be sold in Colorado anymore," or we have to have a registry of everybody who buys 3D printers, or you have to have special state software installed on 3D printers, or we have to have special monitoring of 3D printers. I mean, that's where it goes. How can they enforce this bill? So, folks, it's really egregious. It's absolutely horrible. Pay attention to this one, folks. There's three bills being heard on Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised if something changes because this should be a big one that gets a lot of people out, and we need to have a good showing on this one. Moving on, there's still more to talk about just this week, folks. On Wednesday, February 18th, in the House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee at 1:30 p.m. in LSBA, across from the state capitol, is House Bill 1114, the allowed minimum lot size for subject jurisdiction. So this is part of this whole housing agenda where our state government is trying to force local communities to adhere to a policy that local people do not want in their communities. We've seen this been going on for years. The idea is to create these high-density housing around mass transit areas. It's basically centrally planning our society from the top down. Horrible bill. This bill would require that on October 1st, 2031, a subject jurisdiction shall not require that a parcel have an area larger than 2,000 square feet if the parcel's residential use is limited to a single family home. So the idea is to build a smaller single family homes that are packed in tighter to each other because right now, apparently, there are some communities across Colorado that say, hey, listen, if you're going to build a house in our community, you have to have a certain amount of square footage that you're building the house on, you know what I mean? For different reasons, whether that's the bill even points out water and sewage circumstances, those types of things are exempt from this. But those are just some of the examples you can think of. But ultimately, folks, I think this should be a local decision where people in the local community decide how they want their community to grow and change. So I think it's a bad bill. I think it's just another example of top-down management of state housing policy. So bad news ultimately. What do you think, Michael?
No, I agree. I mean, I also hate the language of this. I mean, when you read it, it almost sounds like they're setting a maximum just because of how convoluted they phrase this bill language. But and a lot of times they do that intentionally. They intentionally try to make legislation confusing for people. So I know, and in fact, it threw me off at first on this one. So yeah, at the end of the day, they're trying to remove the minimum. They're not trying to make the maximum of a lot size be 2,000 square foot. That essentially, if you don't know what that is, that's 40 foot by 50 foot. That's an incredibly tiny little lot. And imagine a house on that lot. That's not going to be practical whatsoever. So very, very, I this at the end of this day, as Brandon's saying, this is all a part of the bigger agenda, this urbanist agenda, where they're going to try to force Coloradans into their little utopia of how Coloradans should live inside these little tiny prisons. And you know what? It's not going to work. People are going to push back because this is going to be absolutely ridiculous. This is not good for Colorado. And all you're going to see is expensive homes that are, starter homes on these tiny little lots still selling for 800,000 million dollars in certain areas, and people are going to say, "What the hell? Why is this tiny little shoebox so expensive?"
Yeah, good point. And there's so much going on. And for people just joining us, we're going over some of the bills being heard in committee hearings this week. So also now we're on Thursday, the last day. There's not much going on Friday on the calendar right now. So this is what was on the House and Senate calendar throughout the week. Of course, that can change throughout the week as bills pass and change. Committees pass bills and things change on the House floor, or the Senate floor. So pay attention on Free State Colorado on X. I try every morning if I can to really let you know what's going on that day. But we're on Thursday, and this is a great bill, folks. I'm really excited about this one. It's upon adjournment of the State House and the House Finance Committee. I really hope people show up to this one. There's several bills being heard in that committee hearing, but House Bill 1048, I think, is a great bill, creating a back to school sales tax holiday. I love the idea of a tax holiday. I'd love to see tax holidays make an entry into Colorado. But this bill basically would create a time-limited state sales and use tax exemption, so no sales tax, for back-to-school items. The tax holiday applies to the last weekend of July 2027 and reoccurs at approximately the same time in 2028 and 2029. A back-to-school item means an article of clothing, school supply, or learning aid that is purchased primarily for use by an individual who is under 21 years old. The exemption for each item is limited as follows. Section 2 permits a town, city, or county to create a tax holiday for back-to-school items that is identical to the state tax holiday. So don't get me wrong, it's a very limited bill. It's a very weak bill. It doesn't do much. But when you're in a Democrat majority state, I feel like you kind of need and I hate to say that, right? But that's the reality of it. You need a weak bill to get through like this because it's so minor. This is all about school and helping the kids out and the teachers and whoever. That's a good thing. And hopefully the Democrats can get on board with this. Because if this becomes a pattern in Colorado where every year we have tax holidays, or it's like, oh yeah, no, this week we're not getting a you don't have to pay sales tax and this and that. And they're doing all these different things. Hey, less taxes is better, is good. I mean, let's look at the fiscal note on this bill real quick, just to give you an idea of what that savings could look like. This is the estimated savings. State revenue, I mean, $1.4 million in 2027, 1.4, $1.5 million. So we're depriving our state government of $1.5 million just by this one weekend or week or whatever of exempting sales. That's great. Good. Let's expand it. Let's keep it going. But hey, it's a start. It's a step in the right direction. And I think it's generally a good thing. What do you think, Michael?
No, I'd love to see this thing pass. I don't necessarily know if it will pass because, again, as you said, it's got to be a very, very weak bill for Republicans to get something through. But if they don't, I think it's a big mistake for Colorado. I think it's a big mistake for Democrats because this is a bill directly aimed at affordability, especially for parents who know how hard it is to raise kids in Colorado right now from an affordability perspective. And affordability is the number one issue in Colorado right now. So if these people aren't going to make it, if the Democrats don't care about true affordability measures, then they need to absolutely pay the price, especially when it comes to how they're attacking parents. Because I would consider this an attack on parents if they don't support this.
Yeah, I'd love to see this bill pass. People, please, write in the House Finance Committee, show up. testify, talk about how valuable this could be if your kid could, you could save some money. $100 for clothing for your kid every year, $50 for school supplies, $30 for a learning aid. That adds up. That helps a lot of these families who are especially on the edge. Maybe they can't afford to buy their kids all this stuff for back to school. This helps solve that problem. Sure, the taxes, they're going to say, oh, it's only $3, it's only $2. But for some people out there, folks, that makes all the difference. So great bill. Excited to see it. It's that incrementalism, and that's being heard Thursday. And then I want to bring up one more bill that's also heard on Thursday in the House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, Thursday, February 19th. I don't know if anybody else has heard about this bill. We did talk about it on a previous live stream. Upon adjournment of the State House and LSB Legislative Service Buildings Committee Room A, it is to require that legislative committee hearing testimony is under oath. Generally speaking, I don't like this idea because, we're just regular citizens. We're just regular people out there. Why should we have to swear an oath that what we're saying and then they go after us because we said something or misspoke? I don't like that idea. I think it's going to make it harder for people to want to participate in the process if they have to swear what they're saying is true. But a little bit of a caveat here. The good part about this bill is that basically it says that people who work for the state government who provide testimony have to not lie. And I like that part. I like that part of the bill, right? That if they're a state agency a member, the bill specifies that an oath is not required for legislators speaking at a committee. Oh wait, no, never mind. This is bad then. Here, look at this. The bill specifies that an oath is not required for legislators speaking at a committee, legislative staff testifying or presenting to a committee within the scope of their regular duties, or a state agency personnel or other individuals giving a planned presentation. So, I don't like that idea. I think it should be mostly for state legislators. I don't think it should necessarily be for the people. But I don't like the idea that they're going to be watching what you say during committee hearings and then being able to charge you with perjury for it. I don't think that's a good idea ultimately. So I think this is potentially a bad bill that's going to discourage people from participating and testifying. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's lobbyists who lie. There's people who show up and lie and make stuff up, and that's not necessarily good. But, if you have free speech and maybe that's your perspective on something, I don't think that's a bad thing either. So, how far is this? Hopefully this bill ends up dying. I think ultimately it's too bad. It's a dangerous piece of legislation potentially. What are your thoughts, Michael?
This is my most disappointing bill of the legislative session so far. Uh, it's an I in my opinion, it's a bit of an attack on free speech, like you're saying. First off, uh, if a regular person going down to testify in committee has to take an oath, then absolutely legislators should also be required to have an oath as well. Anybody speaking in that committee, whether you are a witness or you're one of the individuals up on the stand in that committee itself, should not be above the law. I think it sets a very, very dangerous precedent for Colorado if that's the case, especially in Democratic controlled Colorado. Another thing that I'm concerned about is from a free speech perspective is the ability for people to express themselves satirically, and I think this is going to be a violation of the First Amendment
Yes,
because
sir. Completely agree.
yeah,
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
think about. Oh, last thing is just think of Scott Shamblin. We all we all got to know Scott Shamblin through his through his testimony, his satirical testimony down at the legislature. Similar, you could consider him to be be the Alex Stein of the Colorado legislature, and they're absolutely hilarious, and and a lot of his testimonies went absolutely viral. So I think we're missing out, and I think it's a disservice. I think this bill's a disservice to Colorado.
Agreed, agreed. I'm definitely going to reach out to the bill sponsors and see what they have to say. So a couple more bills on Thursday, folks, in the House Business and Affairs and Labor Committee, the Transportation Network Company Discriminatory Practices. So this is a bad bill that further regulates rideshare companies, basically adding discriminatory to seeking to address discriminatory conduct engaged by the drivers and providing services to drivers. So basically, the idea is it's going to make it a lot more difficult and a lot more reasons why drivers can be gone after. It's going to discourage people from being rideshare drivers. It could create a whole new host of problems. I think it's a bad bill ultimately. It's unnecessary. It's not a bill that people should be spending our time on, and we should not be going after these rideshare companies because I don't think it's the right thing. But Just let me read what Liberty Scorecard has because they have a great description here. It says this bill expands, they say, quote, this bill expands state power over ride sharing companies, boosting fines from $550 to $5,000 and requiring monthly reporting of driver refusals even without prior notice. It mandates new consumer reporting tools and public data disclosures. This is regulatory overreach, punishing platforms for user behavior and micromanaging private businesses. It burdens innovation and undermines voluntary association. Totally agree. Bad bill, needs to be killed. Let's see if there's any other sponsors on it. It doesn't look like there is. Only Gretchen Ryden. Hopefully, this bill dies in the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee. Let's hope so. And maybe Jared Polis would veto it like he has in the past if this bill ends up making it through. But bad bill. What do you think, Michael?
No, I agree. It's a bad bill. I don't even understand the purpose of this bill. Democrats, as we've talked about over the last few years, have an urbanist agenda, and one of the things they want us to do is decommit from cars, take more ride share transportation, take more public transportation. And we've seen, especially from last year's bill that Wilford was able to get passed through, and thankfully Polis vetoed. Um, a bill that was going to end Uber in all of Colorado because they came out and said if this bill passes, we are pulling out. So Polis was they forced Polis's hand to Uber did to veto the bill. This is another attack on rideshare companies. So I don't like this bill. I think this is I think it's very concerning for the future of Colorado if we keep on seeing bills like this because they're gonna force us out of cars, and the people that do have cars and that give people rides are gonna be punished even more. So, what are we gonna be left with? We're gonna be left with RTD, which, as a lot of people know it as, reason to drive. So, very very concerned about what's going on in Colorado with bills like this. If you can get down to the Capitol, I get it. There's a lot of stuff to testify on, but if this is something that concerns you, get down to the Capitol or at least sign up for remote testimony if you have the opportunity to take some time out of your day.
Yeah, folks, if you know any rideshare drivers, let them know about House Bill 1043. Get them to testify, get them to show up, explain how this can put them out of business and open them up to massive fines that could prevent them from being able to provide for their families. Creates all these new reporting requirements. It's bad for rideshare drivers. We need to have a good showing of rideshare drivers against House Bill 1043 this week. So bad news, folks. Absolutely horrible news. Then also on Thursday is the gas utility service. This is a great bill being heard on Thursday in the House Energy and Environment Committee at 1:30 p.m. Let's check it out real quick. It's the only bill being heard, but as you know, folks, there's a plan for the state government to basically outlaw the use of natural gas by 2050. They want to speed that up to 2040 and maybe even sooner than that. But this bill would require a gas distribution utility to exempt carbon dioxide emissions resulting from the combustion of gas by residential customers from the utility's clean heat plan filed with the Public Utilities Commission. A utility must exclude residential carbon dioxide emissions from the baseline and projected emissions calculations used in their plan. So basically, the idea is they say, okay, we can't stop the PUC and the Democrat agenda to totally eliminate natural gas emissions, but we can say don't include residential houses. Don't include residential houses. If you're going to make cuts and you have to lower these emissions of carbon dioxide, do it from places that are not people's homes. That's huge. That means we get to keep our natural gas in our homes at least a little bit longer. So this is a good bill that fights back against this authoritarian anti-energy agenda for sure. So, like Michael was saying, a lot going on this week, folks, but it's so important. This is happening to our state. This is happening to us, affecting our livelihoods and our families and our businesses and our personal lives. So, show up, get involved, do what you can. Thursday, February 19th in the House Energy and Environment Committee. Any other thoughts on this one, Michael?
No, absolutely. Like I said with the last one, we've already asked you to go down to the Capitol a lot this week. But if you can get down there, this is going to be one of the biggest bills that affects affordability. It's all Republicans. I wish there was a Democrat on here, but there is not. And if you can get down there, get down to the Capitol, support this one, that would be absolutely huge. Energy is the biggest going to be one of the biggest topics. Energy and affordability are going to be the two biggest topics, in my opinion, coming up in 2026. So what they say and what the Democrats say in this committee hearing is going to affect the election, in my opinion.
Big time, folks. So let's move on. There is one big bill this week that we forgot. I did not. I don't know if they just added it or if something changed, but I do want to bring it up before we get into the bills we are watching this week. But I just saw here, got notified that this bill is being heard this week. I don't know how I possibly could have missed it. The Legal Protections for the Dignity of Minors, Senate Bill 18, is being heard this Wednesday, February 18th. So important one, folks, at 1:30 p.m. in the Senate Judiciary Committee. This is the bill that in determining your parenting time and allocation of decision-making responsibility for your kid, if you're sharing custody of them, the bill requires the court to consider whether the parties recognize the child's identity as it relates to a protected class. So if your kid is being transed by your ex-wife, and you don't like that, the court will be forced to consider whether you should have decision making responsibility or parenting time with that child. Now, of course, this is already happening in Colorado. I've talked to several parents, I have videos with them explaining that this is happening to their families. It's horrible, and it's absolutely horrific situations, but this bill would make it even worse. Horrible bill being heard this Wednesday in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Michael, anything to say on this one?
This one's absolutely disgusting. Absolutely sick. You could see Colker was one of the big sponsors of 1312, and he was so proud of his ability to harm children um, back in the 2025 legislative session. He's back at it again. Absolutely sick, disgusting. Bills have come out of his term. Katie Wallace is on here. Lorena Garcia, who's one of the worst of the worst. She absolutely loves harming children. Look up if you're also interested in her. Look up some of the money her PAC has received and how much government funding by PAC, I should say her organization. It's called the Colorado Statewide Parental Network. No. Colorado Statewide Parental Coalition is what I believe it's called. Look that up. Look up the 990s, and it's very revealing about. I'll just leave it at this. It's extremely revealing. I'm not going to go too much into that, but there are many concerning individuals who absolutely would push legislation like this on this bill. All four of them are some of the worst for Colorado, particularly kids in Colorado. Like I said before, kids don't fully understand who they are until they are in their mid 20s a lot of times because a human adult's brain is not fully developed until it's about 25. So how can these people make these permanent life altering decisions at such a young age? It's absolutely sick and disgusting. We need to push back against this bill as much as we possibly can. There were 700 people that fought against 1312. Let's see how many people we can get down to the Capitol for this one as well.
Definitely. And, somebody in the chat just said, the autistic community is being targeted by the whole trans agenda. And that is absolutely right. So this Wednesday, February 18th, folks, they're coming after your kids. They're going to try and interfere with that parental relationship and make it easier for your ex-partner, your ex-wife, your ex-husband, whoever, to take away custody of your kid if you don't go along with their gender agenda. So bad news, absolutely egregious, absolutely horrific. But let's do a little bit of a lightning round. It's already after 9. We try and get you to bed early here on a Sunday night, folks, but we're paying attention to some of the important bills we are watching throughout the entire year. So we're giving you an update. I went through every single one of these bills earlier today, and I'm going to let you know where the status is on all of them. So how do you sound, Michael? A little lightning round. We'll switch off on them and go pretty quick.
Hey, that sounds great. Let's see how fast we can go.
All right, I'll start here. Expanding the Colorado Cottage Foods Act, the tamale bill, good pro-liberty bill, increasing food freedom. No date yet.
House Bill 1021, we talked about that today. Hope to see as many of you down at the House Judiciary upon adjournment on Tuesday.
Good bill. House Bill 1037, banning the government from purchasing your personal data from a third party, circumventing the Fourth Amendment. No date yet. Representative DeGraff, great bill from him.
House Bill 1048, back to school sales holiday tax. Hopefully this one passes on Thursday in House Finance.
Good bill. Senate Bill 28. I don't know how I missed this one. Also being heard this Wednesday in the Senate Transportation and Energy Committee, removing wind energy from the state energy goals.
No date on Senate Bill 22 challenges meeting 2030 emissions reduction goals. Let's hope this one gets through whenever we do get a date.
House Bill 1129 just talked about that being heard this Thursday in the House Energy and Environment Committee, basically helping with us still have natural gas to heat our homes.
House Bill 1138 Retail Theft Prevention Program. This one will be heard on Tuesday the 24th, not this week, but next week in the House Judiciary. And its sponsors are Rep. Woog and Rep. Espinoza.
House Bill 1140, local government impact hearings. This one did pass its first committee, is on to the House floor. So we'll keep an eye. That one could pop up this week on the House calendar. We'll keep an eye out for this one. But good bill, allowing local governments to have a bigger voice in the legislative process, helping to protect our local communities. And I'm a big believer in local control.
House Bill 1128, limitation on gender transition procedure claims. This one is a fantastic bill by Ken DeGraff. It will be heard in a couple weeks in the House State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Committee.
Great bill, the registering and driving surplus military vehicles being heard Tuesday. House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government.
House Bill 1105 discuss adoption information with pregnant persons. Wish that was pregnant women. Um, this does not have a date yet, but this is sponsored by Slaw, Flanell, and Zamora Wilson.
Good bill, House Bill 1087 from Representative Scott Bottoms, safeguarding minors from sex altering interventions this Wednesday, February 18th in the House Health and Human Services Committee at 1:30 p.m.
House Bill 1072, right to firearm possession, elimination of extreme risk protection orders, to be a phenomenal bill, to be heard March 2nd, House State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Committee, sponsored by Rep. Scott Slaw.
House Bill 1083, Protect Female Sports Act from Representative Scott Bottoms being heard Monday, March 9th in the House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee at 1:30 p.m.
House Bill 1085, offer pregnant person do not abort form. We talked about this one early with Rep. Kelty, to be heard on Wednesday in House Health and Human Services Committee.
Constitutional carry of a handgun just introduced on the 13th, House Bill 1212 from Leyva Fennell and Carlos Boron. No date assigned yet. Good bill.
House Bill 1209, temporary decrease statutory property tax revenue limits. Good bill by one of the best freshman reps out there, Larry Don Sukla. No date yet.
And he's a sophomore. He was there last year.
Oh,
But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but he's still one of the best. Senate Bill 106, opt out of mail ballot packets for elections. I love this idea for election integrity to say, hey, I don't want the mail in ballot anymore. Let me do it all in person from Senator Zamora Wilson. No date yet.
Senate Bill 1111, we talked about this one earlier. Protections against child rape with Rep. Bradley, Senator Rich, and Rep. English. No date as of today.
This one's very interesting. This one highlights the split in the Democratic caucus, Senate Bill 108, sponsored by a lot of Democrats who are not in the Opportunity Caucus, who are not part of One Main Street Colorado, saying, hey, we want transparency of where your money's coming from, where it's going, and where this caucus money's going, and this and that. So I'd say it's a good bill. It's a transparency bill, so interesting. We'll keep an eye on that one. No date yet.
Senate Bill 86, unlike last year's terrible Senate Bill 86, reduced premium cigar excise tax. Going to be heard in Senate Finance by the Grave Dancer. He brings this up every year. It's his one good thing that he does in the legislature, and it never gets support.
Good bill. I thought this one was great. Senate Bill 91, exclusion of newspaper deliverers as employees. So, there's all these restrictions in Colorado that if you're an actual employee, there's all these benefits and all these different things you got to pay in for health insurance and this and that. And they're saying, hey, listen, if you just deliver newspapers, which barely exist anymore, you shouldn't be considered an employee. Actually, this might help people have more delivery newspapers because they can actually save a lot of costs. A great bill, Senate Bill 91, Thursday, February 26th.
Senate Bill 90, exempt critical infrastructure from right to repair. No date as of today. Sponsored by Senator Carson, Senator Snyder, and Rep. Hartsook. We never talk about the good things of Rep. Hartsook. Hey, there you go. You get your cookies.
You get your one.
That's right.
House Bill 1190, alcohol beverage manufacturer sales, basically loosening barely, just slightly on the margins, loosening alcohol laws here in Colorado. Still a good bill. Lindstedt, Martinez, and Soper, no date yet.
Senate Bill 5, rights violation, immigration. Oh, we are on to the bad bills. And starting off with a banger, Senate Bill 5, rights violation in immigration enforcement remedy. Rep Bradley was talking about this one a little bit ago. Talked about this one earlier, Friday, February 13th, and this will be heard in Senate appropriations.
Yeah, and you notice the date on
Oh
there was
wait,
this last
yeah, that's
Friday,
this. Yeah, that's
but
right.
but I looked it up and there was no in that there was no I don't know if it got delayed or what, but there was no update whatsoever on the state legislative website. It just said it was still scheduled for Senate Appropriations for the committee hearing that happened last week. So I'm like, I don't know what happened to that bill, but so I just left it as is. We'll keep people updated though.
Good call, because it's the 15th.
Senate Bill 4, expand the list of petitioners for the red flag gun confiscation. That is going to be heard next. It passed the Senate. Now it's in the House. Monday, March 2nd on the House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee at 1:30 p.m.
House Bill 1054, protections for worker safety. This is basically OSHA 2.0, but even worse for Colorado. We do not need it. It will be heard Thursday, February 26th in the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee.
House Bill 1043, Transportation Network Company Discriminatory Practices, this Thursday, February 19th, in the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee. Bad bill.
House Bill 1012, consumer protections to promote fair market pricing, will be heard Wednesday, February 25th in the House Judiciary. And you can see some of the worst are progressives. Why am I doing this? Rep Yarazoke. Oh my gosh. You guys know what I'm saying. Rep Kyle Brown, he, him, Senator William Lindstedt, and Senator Mike Weissman. Whew.
Bad bill.
Yep.
House Bill 11 or 1011, where basically Senator Rodriguez is bragging he's going to end stores at pet sale or basically end pet stores here in Colorado. Sales of pets at stores, basically total market manipulation. House Bill 1011, no date yet. Bad bill.
Zoke, by the way. I could say it. House Bill 1005, Work Protection Collective Bargaining. This is a reintroduction of last year's Labor Peace Act bill kill, which was vetoed by Polis. Thank God. Unfortunately, it's back again. No date as of today.
Senate Bill 18, legal protections for the dignity of minors, being heard this Wednesday, February 18th. This is the trans your kid or lose custody bill.
Senate Bill 32, promoting immunization access. This is our anti medical freedom bill, passed the Senate and on to the House Health and Human Services bill, and will be heard on February 25th.
House Bill 1001, the housing developments and qualifying properties, basically giving nonprofits the ability to circumvent local zoning laws to build high density housing for all their little purposes that Jared Polis wants, being heard this Wednesday, March 4th in the Senate Local and Government and Housing Committee. Did pass the House under the Senate.
House Bill 1148, protections for youth on social media. This is another bad bill that's going to use your kids to strip all of our privacy rights. No date as of today.
House Bill 1144, the anti 3D printing bill, being heard this Wednesday, February 18th.
House Bill 1137, requirements for campaign consultants. House that will be heard Monday, February 23rd, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow in the House State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Committee.
House Bill 1126, the anti-firearm dealers bill, basically creating a de facto gun registry and making it almost impossible for a FFL to operate in Colorado. Monday, March 2nd, in the House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. That's going to be a big one.
House Bill 1149, Legislative Committee Testimony Required Oath. We talked about this one earlier, to be heard Thursday in the House State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Committee.
House Bill 1125, the parent penalties for minor using electric bicycle. I don't like this one because it says that a parent has to be punished if if your son or daughter violates laws about riding an electric bike. Being heard Wednesday, February 25th in the House Transportation, Housing, Local Government Committee.
House Bill 1113, modifications to elections, will be heard next a week from Monday in the House State Civic and Military Veterans Affairs Committee.
Another bad bill, 1108. This is the one where they're going to send your fingerprints to the FBI to be in a database forever. This is going to be heard, no date yet. It was supposed to be heard. There was a date, and I think they pulled it. I know Hartsook and Rich, two Republicans, are getting a lot of flack for this bill, so that might have something to do with it. We'll see.
House Bill 1114 allowed minimum lot size for subject jurisdictions. We talked about this one earlier, to be heard on Wednesday in the House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee.
Voter transparency and ballot measures, House Bill 1084. And we'll get more into these in detail, folks, when they're coming up that week, but February 23rd and being heard then. So
Senate Bill 97, we talked about this one earlier. Absolutely shocking bill to come out of the legislature. Let's hope that the combination of this as well as the anti-child protection bills that have already been killed is the tipping point for the Democrats. Let's decriminalize. This one's called the Decriminalize Adult Commercial Sexual Activity Bill, and it does not have a date as of yet.
regulation of broadband services, basically creating new state regulation from the Public Utilities Commission, the horrible PUC, to regulate broadband services across the state. You know, it's going to drive up costs and decrease competition. Bad news. Bad bill, no date.
House Bill 1210 prohibits surveillance, wage, and price setting. This does not have a bill as of today.
House Bill 1207, disclosure of demographic workforce data. So if you're an employer with over a certain amount of employees in Colorado, you have to provide all the data on all the demographics of your workers to the state government so they can decide what they want to do with that. Bad bill, no date yet.
House Bill 1206, improved funding to support development. No date as of today.
Modify Colorado Open Records Act, basically making it harder for us to have access to the to Cora, our local government, to get documents and information from our local governments. Senate Bill 107, no date yet, bad bill.
Senate Bill 42, Revenue Classification Taxpayers Bill of Rights. This is another attack on Tabor with no date as of today.
And then the gone but not forgotten bills, the bills that have already passed away, have been killed so far this legislative session, the last month. Gosh, we're a month in. I just realized that yesterday would have been a month since the legislature convened. And we have the Parental Equality and Child Empowerment Act, the Peace Act that Senator Zamora Wilson told us about previously, unfortunately was killed in committee.
House Bill 1082. This one made the new. This one really made the rounds. Children are not for sale act, sponsored by Scott Bottoms. This one was unfortunately killed, and it's really angered a lot of people. I'm happy to see this anger as long as it turns into actual action and people making productive choices to get involved.
Good bill that died, the prohibit use of personally identifying feature. There were some questions about this one. I thought generally it was probably good. House Bill 1049 from Scott Bottoms and Mark Baisley, killed in committee this last week.
House Bill 1074, 90-day legislative session. Weinberg's going. He's on his way out. He did give us a couple good bills at least. This one was unfortunately killed.
1073, Weinberg's other bill here to limit the bills introduced by the General Assembly members. Great bill. Unfortunately, was killed in committee. No surprise.
House Bill 1062, expand deduction for retirement benefits. This is one of the bills that we talked about that was shockingly killed, particularly by somebody like um, oh my gosh, I can't think of his name, Bob Marshall. Bob Marshall decided to kill this bill. He wanted to make. Did not think it was a good idea to make it cheaper for the elderly in Colorado to survive. Unfortunately, this one was killed. So remember that during Bob Marshall's campaign this upcoming 2026 season.
House Bill 1036, the local taxes on vacant residential property, thankfully was killed. Bad bill. Good to see it gone. And that's all, folks. That's what we got. A lot of information. Appreciate people who stuck it through to the end. There's so much happening in our state government. Think about it, folks. How much is happening in our state government that nobody knows about, right? Important things that affect our livelihoods, our families, and our futures here in Colorado. And the media barely talks about it. People are barely even talking about this stuff online. They're talking about stuff happening at the international or national level or other controversies outside of our state. And it's like this is important stuff that affects so many people, and so few people know about it. Imagine if all the rideshare drivers knew about this anti-rideshare bill coming up. I mean, that should be going viral in their community. Who knows if they even know anything about it? The gun stuff, all the family stuff. There's so much information happening here in Colorado, and it's important for us to have a voice to do what we can and get the information out. So I really appreciate everybody joining us. It was a lot of fun. If you missed Brandi, obviously this is on YouTube. You can go back and watch it anytime, but I will clip out Representative Brandi Bradley's segment and just post that on social media as well, hopefully tomorrow, so people can share that around. And I thought she had some great information to share. Michael, any final thoughts as we wrap it up here?
Uh, 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time. Pay attention. Keep keep your nose or keep your eye on the ball. We are going to take this state back, but we need people to pay attention. They aren't going to give up until we're rotting in the ground. So that means we have no choice but to keep it up, keep our nose on the grindstone, stay committed, and never give up. And we will win.
Never give up, never surrender. We will win. We will be a free state one day. But appreciate you all. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, all the people watching. Thank you, Representative Bradley. It was a great time, and we'll see you guys next week, 7 o'clock, and we'll talk about what's going on in the legislature.